all right. Uncle Mayat, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Smoking Conversations with Sakina-Ra. And of course, y'all know Smoking Back Nations, yay, is again here.
Smoking back nations.
Smoking Back, I'm so sorry. Silverback Nations is here with me again tonight, y'all. You know I had to say Smoking Back Nations. I'm sorry. Listen, Silverback Nations is here with me again tonight, y'all. So I want to say thank you again for having me and being here with me again tonight. So um, tonight we're going to talk about amazing event that we're having coming up here in April. And so if you're not aware, be aware. Let's have some fun and rock with it. I know everybody is not here as of yet, but come on in the room and let's get started. So I want to give everybody a second so we can come on in the room and let's get started. So let me find a brief intermission so I can give everybody a couple of minutes to come on in the room. Let me do that. I always try to start off with a little something. But before I even do that, let me ask you, sister, how you been?
Oh, I've been good. I've been good.
Oh,
I've
okay,
been,
that's amazing.
yeah, I was trying to hold it down.
That's good. That's good. Are you ready for
Happy it's
what
the
is it, the
weekend and all
spring?
that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, spring equinox coming because tomorrow's daylight saving time. So you know that, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right. So you lose an hour of sleep, is it?
Yep.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's
So
okay because I would like to go to bed earlier any damn ways.
hmm
Like, can
yeah,
I please go to sleep? Can I get some rest? Is that
yeah.
possible?
You're about to get that extra hour of sleep, right?
Yep.
So everybody could be out trying to get a little party going on right now, trying to enjoy their
Mm-mm.
stuff right now for a little extra hour. When midnight hit, the time go back, right? So instead of being 12 o'clock, it go back to 1 o'clock, but it's really 11.
Mm-mm.
Right? So I'll tell you what, so let's go ahead on and start this presentation and people will just come on in and excuse me, let's get into it. Shall
Yeah,
we?
I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited about this topic. Yeah, I can't wait.
Okay, so with that being said, let us um let us be I'm so sorry I did that. So let us begin. So let me share my screen and let us start off with the presentation. Um, let us go here. Let me know if you can see the screen for me. Can you see it yet?
Oh,
Oh, wait a minute.
yeah, I can see it real
Wait a
good.
minute. Hold on. Hold on. Let me go to stop sharing.
Yep, it stopped sharing.
I need to exit. All right. I need to exit for a second.
Okay.
I need to go here. I need to start here. All right. Now, is it sharing now?
Um, no,
It's not sharing yet.
nope, nope. What'd you do?
All right, let's exit one more again. And that is every time we do this. Let's go back. Um, Go back here. Go back here. Go back here.
I'm busy sitting here meddling with this
Now let me know if it
meddling with the
shares.
settings. Yeah, so I can try to see why, I can't get my camera working, but
Is it
that
share yet?
I
No.
don't know. Let me
Yes,
go back to
maybe.
you. Yes, there you go.
Okay.
Yep. I can see real good. Yep.
Where are we? Why do we seem to be stuck?
It may just have a slight delay. It may not be stuck.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out like where's my whole.
Okay, you got it. You got it together. What you doing,
It ain't
Sakina?
showing? Huh?
Yeah, it's showing. Yeah, it's showing.
Okay. All right. So here we go. We're going with the flow. So I'll start off by saying that did you know that there will be a solar eclipse that will be across North America, April 2024. Now this will be the first solar eclipse that'll be visible. I'm sorry, from the continuous United States since the solar eclipse of August 21st of 2017. And the path would be a totality that stretch from Texas to Maine, passing through the states as far as Texas, Arkansas, Illinois, Indiana, Pennsylvania, Vermont, Maine, Oklahoma, Missouri, Kentucky, Ohio, New York, and New Hampshire. Now, what makes this eclipse different is that the solar eclipse is an event that only happens approximately 18 months, and it refers specifically to an average frequency of a total solar eclipse that is somewhere on the Earth's surface. And I'll tell you why we say that in a minute as we go down this, we're going to call it a rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
Now, however, the occurrence and the visibility of the solar eclipse is any given location, and that's subjected to the variety of factors, which include a specific geometry of Earth, Moon, Sun, and the systems of the Earth's surface. Now, the total solar eclipse is relatively rare, and the events that compare to the particular or the annual solar eclipse is furthermore the path of the totality, and where the eclipse is visible is relatively narrow. And is often spanning only a few thousand kilometers. And as a result, is given a location of the Earth, and it might experience a total solar eclipse only once every several hundred years, if at all. And that is one of the reasons why, and we'll get more broader into that. So there are several types of eclipse that are primarily categorized, and this is as the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse. And we're going to break that down as we get down to exploring the beauty of this particular event. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the orbits are the Earth, Moon, and the Sun, along with the tilt and the shape of the orbits, and these play a crucial role in determining the occurrence and the frequency of the solar and the lunar eclipse. The Earth orbits is the sun, and the elliptical oval shape, which is with a one complete orbit taking approximately 365.25 days, resulting in a year. The shape of the Earth orbit affects the distance between the Earth and the sun, which can influence the apparent size of the sun in the sky. The moon's orbit is around the Earth in an elliptical orbit as well, with one complete orbit taking approximately 27.3 days, resulting in the lunar month. The moon's orbit is relative to the Earth's orbit around the sun, which means it doesn't always lie in the same place as the Earth's orbit, and this inclination is about 5.1 degrees. Now, the sun's position, this apparent position of the sun is in change, in the sky's change throughout the year due to the tilt of the Earth's axis and is relative to the orbit around the sun. And this tilt is known as the axial tilt, the anaxial tilt, and it's approximately 23.5 degrees. And it is the cause that the seasons and affects the path around the sun across the sky. Now, the sun and the moon exhibits various cycles that have intrigued astronomers, scientists, and cultures throughout history. And the solar cycle, which is in the sun, is roughly about an 11-year cycle, and it's known as the solar cycle or the solar activity cycle. This cycle is categorized by the waxing and the waning of the sun activity, including the number of sunspots, solar flares, and other phenomena. The peak of the solar activity is called the solar maximum, while it's the lowest point of the solar minimum. The sunspot cycle, the sunspots are dark regions of the sun's surface called the magnetic activity. The number of sunspots vary over the solar cycle, which peaks through occurring approximately every 11 years. And the solar eclipse occur when the moon passes between the earth and the sun, casting a shadow on the earth's surface. Although solar eclipses are not strictly tied to the sun's cycles, they occur in predictable patterns known as eclipse cycles, such as Saros cycles, which repeat approximately every 18 years and 11 days. Now, with the moon, the lunar cycles, these are moon phases, excuse me, and from new moon to full moons and back to new moons, they form moon cycles known as the lunar cycles or the lunar month. This cycle takes approximately 29.5 days to complete, and the basis for this is for the modern calendar month. And the orbital cycle is the moon orbits in the earth and its elliptical path. It completes 1 month approximately orbiting to 27.3 days. This orbital cycle, known as the sidereal month, and is measured relative to the stars, and it is slightly shorter than a lunar cycle observed from Earth. Now, the nodal cycle is the moon orbit is tilted relative to the plane of the Earth's orbit around the sun and is causing a path to intersect with the plane at its 2 points, and it's called nodes. At this time, it takes for the moon to return to the same node is known as the nodal cycle, and which is approximately 18.6 years. And these cycles influence various phenomena on the earth, including tides, seasons, biological rhymes, and understanding these cycles is essential for astronomy, navigation, agricultural, and cultural practices. And additionally, these provide insights into dynamics of the earth, the moon, the sun systems, and the broader universe. Now, the ancient mysteries and the magnetic mysteries with the magnetic fields, both the sun and the earth have magnetic fields that play crucial roles in shaping the dynamics of the space and weather. And during the solar eclipse, The scientists have opportunities to study how Earth magnetic fields interact with solar magnetic fields. Now, this interaction can lead to phenomena such as geomagnetic storms and auroras, adding to an extra layer of intrigue to the eclipse events. And ancient mysteries and cultural significance with the solar eclipse have profound cultural and spiritual significance for civilizations throughout history. And the ancient cultures often interpreted eclipse and omens for signs from gods and rituals which were performed to ward off or perceive threats associated with these events. And in 2024, these eclipses continue these traditions and cultural fascinations with people from diverse backgrounds, and they come together to witness these spectacular of nature scientific explorations of discoveries. Let me see what I'm at. I'm about to come up with a slide, a couple of, I'm going to show a video on a couple of slides. Now, the modern
Mhm.
civilization instruments allow researchers today, I want to say that part, to observe the studies of the solar eclipse and the unprecedented details. And during 2024, the eclipse, the scientists, they'll be able to have the opportunity to gather data on the solar phenomenon, such as the solar corona, the solar flares, and the changes in the solar radiation. And these observations contribute to our understanding of the sun's behavior and the impact on the Earth's environment. Now, the eclipse chasers in the community, these solar eclipses have a dedicated following of enthusiasts, and they're known to be eclipse chasers, like tornado chasers and all of that. And they travel the globe to witness these events. The 2024 eclipse will bring together people from all walks of life, united by their share of passion for astronomy and the wonders of the cosmos. And since this community adds an element to the chirodramatic to this experience, this is as individuals bond together over the mutual appreciation for the beauty and the mystery of the universe. And with the magnetic mystery of the sun and the moon of the 2024 eclipse, this alignment of the sun, moon, and the earth during this solar eclipse, it creates a captivating celestial event that has mystified humanity for centuries. And the 2024 solar eclipse, like all solar eclipse, occurs when the moon passes between the earth and the sun, casting a shadow on the Earth's surface. And this alignment and synchronicity will precisely align, and it requires a solar eclipse, an awe-inspiring, despite the vast distance between I'm sorry, y'all, the vast distance involved and the complexities of the orbital the orbital mechanics, the sun, the moon, and the earth. And when it's aligned in such that way, the moon shadow falls on the earth's surface and it creates this eclipse. And the alignment and the synchronicity hints that all the intricate will have a dance of celestial bodies that govern a fundamental law of physics. And right now, I'm about to show you a clip. So give me 1 second. I need to stop this. I'm sorry. Let me pause this for a minute.
Hold on.
Have you ever wondered why the planets in our solar system don't line up perfectly? It's an intriguing question, isn't it? Welcome to a journey into the cosmic ballet of celestial bodies. Today, we're diving into the fascinating topic of planetary alignment, a dance choreographed by the laws of physics and gravity. The solar system, our cosmic neighborhood, is a vast, complex system with 8 planets, hundreds of moons, and countless comets and asteroids. All these celestial bodies move in orbits around the sun, but they don't do so in perfect harmony. They are scattered in space and time, each following its own path. Why is that, you might ask? The fundamental reason lies in the nature of orbits. Planets orbit the sun in paths called ellipses, not perfect circles. These elliptical orbits are a result of the gravitational forces between the planets and the sun. Each planet's orbit is also tilted at a different angle, causing the planets to be at different heights in the solar system. Now, imagine trying to draw a straight line through the sun and all the planets at any given moment. It would be nearly impossible. This is because the planets are not only at different distances from the sun, but they also travel at different speeds. The closer a planet is to the sun, the faster it travels. So the inner planets like Mercury and Venus zip around the sun much faster than the outer planets like Jupiter and Saturn. This brings us to the concept of conjunctions and oppositions. When 2 or more planets appear close together in the sky from our viewpoint on Earth, we call this a conjunction. An opposition, on the other hand, is when a planet appears directly opposite the sun in our sky. However, true planetary alignment, in which all the planets line up perfectly, is extremely rare. Astronomers estimate that such an alignment, considering only the 8 planets we know today, might occur once in every 1 to 2 billion years. In the grand scheme of the cosmos, the planets of our solar system are like dancers in a ballet, each performing its own unique dance, yet all part of the same grand performance. Each planet's dance is dictated by the laws of physics and the gravitational pull of the sun, resulting in a cosmic ballet that is ever-changing and endlessly fascinating. To summarize, the planets in our solar system don't line up perfectly due to their elliptical orbits, different orbital speeds, and tilts. These factors result in a complex and ever-changing arrangement of celestial bodies in the solar system. The concepts of conjunctions and oppositions describe how planets appear in our sky, and true planetary alignment is a rare event. So the next time you gaze up at the night sky, remember the cosmic ballet that's taking place above you. Each celestial body, from the smallest asteroid to the largest planet, is performing its own unique dance in the grand performance that is our solar system. And you, dear listener, have a front row seat to this incredible show. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the cosmos. Until our next cosmic adventure, keep exploring and keep wondering.
All right, now let's go back. Okay, so now we can go forward. I'm sorry. So, in summary, with this, in 2024, the solar eclipse is going to be a testament of the magnetic mysteries of the sun, the moon, and the earth, and as well as enduring fascination of the celestial events that hold for humanity. And whether viewed through the lens of the science, the culture, or spirituality, the solar eclipse continues to inspire the world and the curiosity, inviting us to ponder the mysteries of the cosmos and note that the eclipse has a path of a totality, which is the best point of view for where the land is flat, and the visibility for each to see the event will be a spectacular for us. However, outside the path of totality, the observers will still be able to witness see a partial social part of the solar eclipse, and that's varying the degrees depending on the locations. And we'll have some information on that as well later on. Now, at the end of each solar eclipse and the lunar cycle, those are certain phenomena occur. Now, the sun, the solar cycle, at the end of each solar cycle, the sun reaches either a solar maximum or a solar minimum. And during the solar maximum, the solar activity, including sunspots, solar flares, and coronal mass ejections at the peak. Conversely, during the solar minimum, the solar activity at the lowest point transitions between these phase marks and at the end of one cycle and at the beginning of the next. The sunspots cycle at the end of each sunspot cycle marks transition from a period of high sunspot activity, which is solar maximum, to a period of low sunspot activity, solar minimum, or vice versa. And as the sun cycle progresses, the number of sunspots decreases until reaching minimum, afterward, which it gradually increases again. The solar eclipse, while not strictly tied to the sun cycles, the solar eclipse occurs periodically when the moon passes between the earth and the sun, casting a shadow on the earth's surface. And the end of the solar eclipse marks a completion of the moon transit across the sun disk and the dissipation of the eclipse. Now, the moon at the lunar cycle, at the end of each lunar cycle, the moon completes a journey through its phase, and from the new moon to the full moon and back to the new moon. The end of the lunar cycle marks the beginning of a new lunar moon, new lunar month, and a new cycle of lunar phases. The orbital cycle is the moon's orbital cycle around the earth, and it's continuous. So there is a specific end to this cycle. However, at any given point in time, the moon completes one orbit around the earth approximately every 27.3 days. And at the end of this orbital cycle signifies the completion of one revolution around the earth. The lunar eclipse occurs when the earth passes between the sun and the moon, casting a shadow on the moon's surface. And at the end of the lunar eclipse, it occurs when the moon exits the earth's shadow, marking the completion of the eclipse event. These events mark significant points in the sun, moon, earth system, and they are essential for understanding celestial dynamics and phenomena. Now, there is a beginning of a new cycle for the sun or the moon, and it signifies the start of a fresh phase in their respective cycles. The sun's solar cycle starts a new solar cycle marked for transition and a period of low solar activity. And that again is a solar minimum, excuse me, and it's a period of increased solar activity for the solar minimum, vice versa. It's a transition that typically brings change in the number of sunspots for the flares and other solar phenomena. For researchers studying the solar activity, it's a beginning for the new sun cycle, offering opportunities to observe the study of the sun behavior as it ramps up or winds down in activity. The sunspot, similarly, and beginning of the new sunspot cycle signifies the start of a new cycle in sunspot activity, and the sunspots gradually increase the numbers of the cycle, progressing from solar minimum to maximum and decreases again in the cycle, transitions back to the solar minimum. And the beginning of the sunspot cycle is often associated with the emergence, otherwise birth, of a new sunspot on the sun's surface. The lunar cycle of the new lunar cycle occurs with the appearance of the new moon, marking the beginning of a new cycle for a lunar phase. From the new moon to the moon gradually waxes until it reaches a full moon phase, then it winds back to the new moon. The start of the new cycle, lunar cycle, is significant for various culture, religions, and agriculture practices that rely on the lunar calendar. The orbital cycle The moon's orbital cycle around the Earth is continuous, so there isn't any distance between distinct beginnings or ends to this cycle in the same way of the solar cycles. However, each orbit represents a complete revolution to the moon around the Earth, and its position related to the Earth's changing continuous throughout the cycle. In summary, the beginning of the new cycle for the sun or the moon represents a fresh start, and the commemorament of new phases in their respective patterns of activity or motion. Now, with the eclipse, the tilt of the shape of the Earth's orbit and the inclination of the moon orbit, or the axial tilt of the Earth, and all the influence of occurrence and frequency of the solar and lunar eclipse by affecting the alignments in the position of the celestial bodies involved. And with the solar eclipse, the eclipse when the moon passes between the Earth and the sun, blocking out the sun's light. The total solar eclipse happens when the apparent size of the moon matches the apparent size of the sun, allowing the moon to completely cover the sun. And this alignment is due to the relatively close match in apparent sizes, and the sun, the moon, and the specific position of the Earth, moon, and the sun in their orbits. With a lunar eclipse, the lunar eclipse occurs when the Earth passes between the sun and the moon, casting a shadow on the moon. The total lunar eclipse is when the entire moon passes through the sun's shadow, when the Earth's shadow, and this occurs of the lunar eclipse depends on the alignment of the Earth, the moon, and the sun, and the position of the moon related to the Earth's shadow. Now, the frequency of the types of the solar eclipse with the total solar eclipse, that eclipse is less common than the partial solar eclipse and the annual solar eclipse. On average, the total solar eclipse occurs somewhere on Earth approximately every 18 months. But the path of the total eclipse relatively narrow, so any given location might experience a total solar eclipse only once every several hundred years. And the partial solar eclipse is more frequent than the total solar eclipse, because it can occur several times a year, but they're not visible from all locations. And that is why that's the difference between the partial and the solar, due to the locations and the visibility. So you'll be more probably likely to see a partial than you would be able to see a total because of the locations for visibility. That is the difference. With the annual solar eclipse are less common than partial solar eclipse, but more frequent than total solar eclipse because they're typically occurring every 1 to 2 years. With a lunar eclipse, total lunar eclipse are more common than total solar eclipse. On average, there are about 2 to 4 lunar eclipses per year visible for various locations on Earth. The annual solar eclipse happened when the moon covers the sun, leaving the sun's center, and this leaves the sun outer edge visible as a ring, an annulus ring or annulus around the moon. And this occurs when the moon is near its farthest point from Earth in its elliptical orbit. The total lunar eclipse occurs when the Earth comes between the sun and the moon, with the Earth's shadow completely covering the moon. And during that total lunar eclipse, the moon takes on a reddish hue, and it's during the scattering of the sunlight during the Earth's atmosphere, leading to being called a blood moon. In the particular lunar eclipse, the partial lunar eclipse is only a portion of the moon, and it passes the Earth's shadow. The rest remains illuminated by the sun. And then there's a pre-numeral lunar eclipse. And this type of eclipse occurs when the moon passes through the Earth's penumbral shadow. And the most subtle type of lunar eclipse with a slight darken of the moon's face. And these eclipses occur during the alignment of the sun, earth, and moon, creating a cast by one celestial body onto another. And the specific type of eclipse experience depends on the alignment and the distance between these bodies. And the partial lunar eclipse, that partial lunar eclipse occurs more frequently than the total lunar eclipse, that can happen several times a year. And with the prenumeral lunar eclipse, that eclipse are more common than the type of lunar eclipse. And they can be found anywhere from 0 to 3 prenumeral eclipse in a year. And again, the frequency of the eclipse are affected by various factors, including these factors that result excuse me, in various numbers and types of eclipse that are observed each year. The visible of the eclipse depend again on the alignment of the sun, the earth, and the moon, as well as the observer's locations on earth and the reasons why. Because the partial and annual solar eclipse are visible from broadened areas than from solar areas because they depend on the locations and they're based on the alignment of the sun and the moon and the earth. We already know this. I have to set that in stone always. The lunar eclipse are visible from the entire nighttime hemisphere. These are reasons why of the earth is where the moon is above the horizon during the eclipse. However, specific reasons can be observed by the total lunar eclipse depending on timing of the eclipse and the observer's location. Partial and penumbral lunar eclipse can be visible from a wider range of locations than from the total lunar eclipse, but the visible still depends on the observer's geographic location at the timing of the eclipse. Now, overall, the visibility of the eclipses has those influence factors such as the path and the totality and the timing of the eclipse. The observer's geographic location, the location's weather conditions, as well as the result of the eclipse does not occur at the same time in the same area when they happen. With the visibility of the solar eclipse, it depends on the same factors that we already spoke of with the locations. And they have guidelines in the visibility for the different types of these eclipses. Now, with the solar eclipse, the total solar eclipse, the path of totality, where the total solar eclipse is visible, it varies with each eclipse. Recent total solar eclipse have been visible from locations such as the United States, Chile, Argentina, Indonesia, and parts of Europe and Africa. These specific locations with these countries were where the eclipses are visible, depending on the path of totality for each eclipse. With a partial solar eclipse are visible from the broader areas than the solar eclipse. They can be observed from regions outside the path totality, extending over larger portions of the Earth's surface. With the annual solar eclipse have a specific path where the annual phase are visible. Recent annual solar eclipses have been visible from locations such as the Middle East, Africa, South Asia, and parts of the United States and Canada. The total lunar eclipse are visible from the nighttime hemisphere of the Earth, where the moon is above the horizon during the eclipse. The specific regions where the lunar eclipse are visible depend on the timing of the eclipse and the observer's location. And generally, if these eclipses are during the nighttime hours, it can be observed from various locations around the world. Partial lunar eclipse are visible from wider ranges of locations than total eclipse, and they can be observed from regions where the moon is above the horizon during the eclipse, even when the eclipse is not total. The penumbral eclipse are visible from the regions where shadow of the earth is falls on the moon, and these eclipses are subtle and may be changing to observe without careful observation. Viewing the opportunities in your area are recommended to consult astronomical organization websites or apps that provide eclipse viewings, guides, and maps based on your location. And let me say this, and part of the reason why is because lunar eclipse are eclipse that are for the moon, and these eclipses happen at night. Let me I gotta come out of here for a minute. And so, oh, did I exit the screen? Let me stop sharing. And so, put in the Samuel. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know you was gone. Are you back? Hello? Can you hear me? Horton, here's a who. Let me see if I can get you a voice. Do you got a voice?
Yes, Sakina, you know I'm back here meddling around with these settings. You already know it. I had the camera working. And then
I'm
I
sorry.
just lost it again. Gosh, Lee, it's a lot. Go ahead, sis. I'm
Okay,
here
let me
to hear.
finish out. Let me finish out. Let me finish out. Okay, so am I froze here? Okay, so oh, what happened? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Go ahead. Go ahead,
So
Sakina.
okay, so we was talking about the view of the lunar eclipse and the viewing of the lunar eclipse and being in your area. Then we were going to oh, let me go back. The reason why I said that because we knew that the lunar eclipse um the reason why we're saying viewing opportunities in your area and recommending a consultant astronomical organizations, websites, and apps to provide eclipse viewing guidelines and maps. We all know that lunar eclipse are moon eclipse, and these eclipses happen at night. And so we know about telescopes and all of these things that we need to be able to view a lunar eclipse. And so this is why we need to consult to make sure that we can be able to watch them, and all of our um, uh, cameras and telescopes and whatnot, that we need to be able to view these things. Um, I know it's going to be different from watching it in the daytime, but again, make sure that you have the proper protective gear that you need to watch eclipse at night again. So make sure you do that, because I've never watched a lunar eclipse, but I'm pretty sure um, there has to be some kind of we watching the sun. Let's say that moving forward. So with the solar and the lunar eclipse occurring in varying frequencies, due to the orbits and the alignments of the Earth and the Moon and the Sun, or they due to the orbits, I'm saying. So, with the solar eclipse and their relatively rare in events on average, they occur somewhere on the Earth, approximately again the 18 months on the path of totality, and where the eclipses are visible and relatively narrow. You're given a location might experience a total solar eclipse every several hundred years. The partial solar eclipse again is more common than the solar eclipse, and they could occur every several times a year, but they're not visible from all the locations. And the frequencies of the partial solar eclipse again um, depends on the alignment of the sun, moon, and earth. The annual solar eclipse are less common, and they're typically every 1 to 2 years, although they can be frequently and they can vary through frequency. Um, you have your total lunar eclipse that are more common than the solar eclipse on average. You get about 2 or 4 a year. They're in various locations, but not all lunar eclipses are visible from every location. The partial eclipses are more frequent than the lunar eclipse, and they happen several times a year. But you're pretty much only going to see portion of that moon that passes through the year. You have your prenumbral eclipse that happens anywhere from none to 3 prenumbral eclipses a year. They're subtle to change, and they're to observe with a out careful observation. And overall, the frequency of the eclipse are based on specific types of eclipse and the alignment of the celestial bodies that's outside in the solar system. Now, this is the trajectory of the eclipse that's going to be here in April. And so, as we see, they got little messages running across, but as it's going to be running across Texas, I'm going to move my marker and let it roll up again, but you're going to see this is a small snippet of the trajectory that it's going to be rolling across. And so, if anybody's ever seen an eclipse before, what happens is around start time, you'll start to see it'll start getting dim and dimmer and dimmer. So you'll see this is what this line represents from on the outside until you get into all the way over into this side. And so that's what it represents from this side to this side. And so you'll be able to see the moon is actually going this way to cover the sun because it's moving this way. And so you'll see the total darkness or the ring. It's going to be so. This is actually this CDT in the middle. This is going to be actually the sun, and the sun is this way. So the moon is actually going to be going this way. So this streak right here is running. This is actually the black. And so you'll need the glasses for this very reason. So it's going to start to turn dark, like nighttime, only for like 3 to 5 minutes, and then the sun's going to come back out. So for anybody that's never seen it, it's actually a beautiful sight. People are gonna be able to see it in totality. A lot of people still gonna be able to see it. See, they'll still be able to see it. So, as we get close to closing it up, we just want to again remind you that the solar eclipse of April 8th, 2024 is going to be visible in Texas, one of the states in USA. Now, the time of that eclipse is going to be varied slightly in your specific locations. And here are some of the projected times of the key phases of the eclipse in Texas. The partial eclipse begins um, and is expected to begin in the late morning or early afternoon, depending on that location in Texas. And it'll start a few minutes before the path, and it'll reach totality to each state according to. So it's beginning in mid-afternoon for most states around Texas, about 1:15 p.m. to 1:30 Central Daylight Time. This is the time when the sun will be completely covered by the moon, resulting by the solar eclipse. The maximum eclipse of where the sun is most obscured by the moon is expected to occur shortly after the beginning of totality. And this is also a very slightly depending on where your location is in Texas. This is only in Texas. This is nowhere else. This is only in Texas. I only have to vary it down to a specific location. Now, when the totality ends after the duration around 3 minutes, depending on that location within Texas, it will end to early mid afternoon around 1:45 or 2 p.m. And the partial phase of the eclipse will end shortly after totality and likely mid afternoon, depending on that location. And so, with that, I just want to put in a reminder that you will be looking at the sun. And so sunglasses are not PPE. And so I need you to keep that in mind that personal protective equipment is not sunglasses. So you need to be ensured that you have you're protected, your children are protected as well from blindness and other hazards that you will have or could get during this event. And so I heard that they have precautions and the glasses and everything out as of now. So we need to be getting them while the getting is good for this event, April 8th, because they have trajectory points out now for everybody to be able to see, even at partially, if not at totality. So the key points that we can walk away with about the alignment and the celestial bodies in our solar system is that we have a fascinating journey through the cosmos and the alignments of the celestial bodies in our solar system, and that our celestial bodies include planets, moons, asteroids, comets, and all orbiting in our sun. And it's a delicate cosmetic dance. And the alignments of various types of conjunctions where bodies align on the same side of the sun or opposite, where they all are on opposite sides. And these alignments are not just spectacular to observe, they influence gravitational forces that have been pivoted on navigation and cultural lore. Astronomers predict alignments like when multiple planets align at night, skies offering a breathtaking from views from Earth, and the cosmos offer a boundless,
Sakina,
spectacular spectacle of alignment. Huh?
are you supposed to be having the slideshow with this information? Because I don't see the slideshow.
No, the slideshow is over. These are just the
Oh,
keys. These are just
okay.
keys. These are
Okay, so
just
this is the
keys.
summary. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. These are just keys from these keys came off of one of them videos, right?
Oh,
From
okay.
the
That's what I was
celestial
just
body.
asking.
Yeah. Right. And so we just need to keep looking up so that in case we can witness the celestial dances for ourselves. Right. And with that, we end. Oops, not that one. And then we go into this last right here.
Ever wonder why during an eclipse, animals behave unusually, or why electronic devices sometimes malfunction? Welcome to Smoking Conversations with Sakina-Ra, as we explain how it's a celestial story of magnetic fields. Our sun and moon, these luminous bodies in the cosmos, are not just silent spectators. They exert invisible forces that subtly shape our world, and during an eclipse, these forces come into play in the most intriguing ways. So, let's dive into the fascinating world of celestial magnetic fields and their impact during an eclipse. The sun, our very own star, is more than just a giant ball of hot gas. It's an immense dynamo, a cosmic powerhouse that generates a magnetic field so incredible it extends far beyond its visible surface. This magnetic field is not a stagnant entity. It's a dynamic, ever-changing force, born from the sun's internal movements. Deep within the sun's core, nuclear fusion churns out an intense heat that creates convection currents. These currents carry heat from the sun's core to its surface, in a process akin to boiling soup. But how does this create a magnetic field, you might ask? The answer lies in the sun's rotation. The sun doesn't spin uniformly like a solid sphere. Instead, it exhibits differential rotation, with its equator spinning faster than its poles. This churns the sun's plasma in a unique way, twisting and winding up its magnetic field lines. This process is known as the dynamo effect. It's like a giant cosmic generator, continually creating and recreating the sun's magnetic field. This dynamo effect gives the sun's magnetic field its basic structure, a dipolar field similar to Earth's, but with a twist. The sun's magnetic field isn't simply a north and south pole, like a bar magnet. It's far more complex. The field lines are wound up and twisted, forming loops that extend outwards from the sun's surface. These loops are the birthplaces of sunspots, solar flares, and coronal mass ejections, phenomena that can have significant impacts on our planet. But the sun's magnetic field isn't just about these fiery displays. It's also a protective bubble, shielding the solar system from cosmic radiation. It forms a vast, invisible shield, known as the heliosphere, which extends far beyond the furthest planet in our solar system. The sun's magnetic field, thus, is a complex and dynamic force that plays a significant role in solar activities. Its effects reach far beyond the sun's surface, shaping the very nature of our solar system and influencing life on Earth in myriad ways. Now let's shift our gaze slightly to the moon, our closest celestial neighbor. Unlike the sun and Earth, the moon's magnetic field is a tale of a force that once was, a faded echo of a time when our lunar companion was geologically alive. To understand the moon's magnetic field, we need to journey back in time, some 4 billion years ago. Back then, the moon was a hotbed of volcanic activity, with a molten core just like our Earth. This churning molten core created a dynamo effect, generating a strong magnetic field. But as the eons passed, the moon cooled, its core solidified, and the dynamo effect ceased. The once powerful magnetic field faded, leaving behind a weak remnant field that we detect today. Now you might be thinking, how does the moon's weak magnetic field compare to Earth's? Well, let's put things into perspective. The strength of Earth's magnetic field is around 50,000 nanoteslas. In contrast, the moon's magnetic field is a mere 1 to 2 nanoteslas. That's a difference of several magnitudes. So, why should we care about this weak, faded force? This seemingly insignificant magnetic field holds significant clues about the moon's past. By studying it, we can understand how the moon evolved and why it's so different from Earth. It also affects the way the moon interacts with the solar wind, the stream of charged particles emitted by the sun. During a solar eclipse, when the moon blocks the sun, this weak lunar magnetic field interacts with Earth's stronger field in fascinating ways. It can influence the path of solar particles, creating unique effects that scientists are still trying to fully understand. Despite its weakness, the moon's magnetic field holds clues to its past and influences phenomena during an eclipse. As we continue to explore the mysteries of our solar system, this faded force serves as a reminder of the moon's fiery past and its ongoing role in shaping our celestial experiences. An eclipse is more than just a spectacular celestial event, it's a dance of shadows. Now you may be wondering, what exactly is an eclipse? Simply put, an eclipse is an astronomical event that occurs when one celestial body, like a planet or a moon, moves into the shadow of another celestial body. Eclipses can be of two types, solar and lunar. During a solar eclipse, the moon passes between the Earth and the Sun, casting a shadow on a portion of the Earth. Conversely, during a lunar eclipse, it's the Earth that comes between the Sun and the Moon, resulting in the Earth's shadow falling on the Moon, giving it a reddish hue. But why do these celestial dances occur? It's all down to the alignment. Solar and lunar eclipses happen when the Sun, the Earth, and the Moon align in a straight line or nearly straight line. This alignment is also known as syzygy, a term that's as fascinating as the event it describes. But it's not just about shadows and alignments. There's a magnetic aspect to this celestial spectacle as well. The Sun and the Moon both have their own magnetic fields. The Sun's magnetic field, being much stronger, extends far into space, while the Moon's magnetic field is weaker and more localized. During an eclipse, the magnetic fields of the Sun and Moon interact in ways that can have some interesting effects. And that's the enigma we'll dive into in our next scene. Stay tuned. So what happens to the magnetic fields of the Sun and Moon during an eclipse? Now that's a question that has intrigued many minds. Let's delve into the celestial realm to uncover this mystery. During an eclipse, whether solar or lunar, the Sun, Moon, and Earth align in a straight line. This alignment, in addition to creating a visual spectacle, causes a unique interaction between the magnetic fields of the Sun and the Moon. The Sun, a giant dynamo, possesses a powerful magnetic field that extends far into space, reaching beyond the furthest planets in our solar system. This magnetic field is constantly in motion and fluctuates in intensity, largely driven by the Sun's rotation and the movement of plasma within its core. On the other hand, the Moon's magnetic field is quite different. It's faint, almost negligible compared to the Sun's. The Moon once had a stronger magnetic field, but over billions of years it has faded significantly. When an eclipse occurs, the Moon comes between the Sun and Earth during a solar eclipse, or the Earth comes between the Sun and Moon during a lunar eclipse. This alignment causes the magnetic fields of these celestial bodies to interact in a unique way. The Moon, despite its weak magnetic field, acts as a shield during a solar eclipse, temporarily blocking the Sun's intense magnetic field from reaching Earth. This results in a slight decrease in the strength of the magnetic field that we experience on Earth, a phenomenon often referred to as the eclipse effect. During a lunar eclipse, however, the Earth's magnetic field shields the Moon from the Sun's magnetic field. This interaction doesn't have a noticeable effect on Earth, but it does create a fascinating spectacle in the sky. These shifts in magnetic fields, subtle as they may be, can have interesting effects. Scientists have observed changes in the Earth's ionosphere, the layer of the Earth's atmosphere that's filled with charged particles during an eclipse. This can impact radio wave propagation, potentially affecting communication systems. Additionally, research suggests that these magnetic field changes might influence animal behavior. Some animals seem to react to the eclipse, showing signs of confusion or changes in activity. However, more research is needed to fully understand these effects. So while the eclipse is a breathtaking sight to behold, it's also a complex celestial event involving a dance of magnetic fields. And even though we may not feel these magnetic changes, they're happening right over our heads, subtly influencing our planet and perhaps even the creatures living on it. The effects of these celestial magnetic fields during an eclipse are subtle, yet significant. So next time you're lucky enough to witness an eclipse, remember, there's more than meets the eye happening up there in the cosmos. So, how does this celestial ballet of magnetic fields affect us here on Earth? Well, let's dive in. The Sun and Moon's magnetic fields interacting during an eclipse can lead to some quite remarkable phenomena. For instance, you might be surprised to learn that animal behavior can change significantly during an eclipse. Birds, for example, often go silent, fooled into thinking night has fallen. Spiders may start dismantling their webs, and cows might start heading back to the barn. It's as if the animal kingdom is putting on a show of its own, reacting to the temporary twilight in fascinating ways. But it's not just the animal world that feels the effects. The combined magnetic fields of the Sun and Moon during an eclipse can also have an impact on our technology. Radio waves, which are a type of electromagnetic radiation, can be affected by these magnetic shifts. This can result in unusual radio propagation patterns and could potentially cause interference in electronic devices. Now, before you start worrying about your smartphone going haywire during the next eclipse, it's important to note that these effects are usually quite minimal and short-lived. In fact, they often go unnoticed by the average person. However, they are of great interest to scientists who study these celestial events, as they offer unique opportunities to learn more about our universe and its magnetic ballet. So, while the spectacle of an eclipse is undeniably awe-inspiring, the invisible dance of magnetic fields that accompanies it is equally fascinating. It's a reminder that even as we go about our daily lives, we are part of a larger cosmic dance, subject to the forces of the universe in ways we may not always perceive. The next time you witness an eclipse, remember, there's more to it than meets the eye. So we've taken a journey through the magnetic fields of the Sun and Moon and their interplay during an eclipse. We've learned that the Sun, our giant dynamo, generates a powerful magnetic field that extends far beyond its surface. We've also discovered that the Moon, despite its faded force, plays a crucial role in this celestial dance. We've delved into the fascinating phenomenon of eclipses, where the Sun and Moon align perfectly, creating a breathtaking spectacle. Moreover, we've seen how this alignment influences the magnetic fields, triggering unique effects observable only during an eclipse. We've discussed the implications of these magnetic shifts, from the way they disturb our planet's magnetosphere to their potential impacts on our technology. In essence, these magnetic fields and their eclipse-induced fluctuations are yet another testament to the intricate and awe-inspiring mechanisms of our universe. As we continue to unravel the mysteries of our universe, every eclipse brings us a step closer to understanding our place within the cosmic ballet.
And that is it. Yay! Are you here? Oh my goodness. Did you bump yourself out again? And that is the end of the presentation, everyone. And Gemini's working
Hey, I
on
know, I saw it. I'm here.
and Gemini's working as usual.
Yay. Well, that was really good. Very informative. I really liked it. I hope it gets us more sparked in the
Yeah, I gotta
collective
change.
about. Is that somebody coming up? Who is
I
that?
believe it's on I'm not sure.
So wait though, Sakina, listen. I really hope this kind of like inspires our
Mhm.
collective to get more, kind of interested in this solar eclipse that's coming next month. You know what I mean? Like it's a really fun thing. And then on top of that, for all the so-called, people who are interested in science, you know, after the eclipse, they should measure like the data, because the last time we had this eclipse, and I was at work, maybe about a week later, there was that tsunami. There was lots of flooding. There was so much that
Yes.
had happened that was like real, jacked up. I guess because of that gravitational pull, And so this year, we're having, this is a really large eclipse that's happening. And so, I just
Yes.
hope that, yeah, it doesn't end up in, some parts of the world ending up in something catastrophic. You know what I mean?
Yes, because this one is going to be right, because I think the next one they saying is going to be in 2040 or something like that,
Yeah.
right? And so that's going to be another reason, and also because we don't get them that often. Um,
Right.
you know, especially because the location geographically. One is because it has to be um above sea level,
Hmm.
and also because of one is above sea level, and two is because of the placement of where, because the sun rotates and the moon rotates, and so because of, there's no telling where it's going to be at that time, right? And we already know that because of birth charts and all of those kind of things, because of that's according to, that's how the calendars and everything was made, according to
Right.
where the
Right.
sun was and everything at that year, at that time, and all of this. And so that's why predictions, right? We do business that way. We have a pre a pro rate, and then we have this other rate, right? And then we
Right.
have, right, and then we do budgets like that. We do all kind of business like that. Y'all know how I get after a certain time. Um, we give projected rates, and then we have the real annual rate, right? We projected budgets, and then we have that
Right.
actual
So,
budget.
how we get on budgets? How we get on
I'm
projected
just saying,
budgets?
I'm just using that for example, because this is the same thing we saying when it comes to trajectories and this kind of thing, when it comes to
Yeah.
why it is what it is. You see what I'm saying? And so it's the
Yeah,
same
because it
thing.
does totally affect different geographic locations, right? And so it's
Exactly.
like, yeah, it's like, man, I sure would hate that, for May and June to really be jacked up, the summertime because of this gravitational pull, that's uh totally natural by the eclipse. We just so happen, to be living in a great time where we're seeing this wonder, but at the same time, we don't know what's at the end of it. I think you're muted. Sakina, you're muted. Okay, there you go.
All right, we got disconnected. We back connected, I think. I
Yeah,
think.
all that time you were talking and you were muted.
Yes. But We're gonna be back again tomorrow too. So that went quicker than I thought, but it wasn't that many slides. It was like 30,
Yeah,
31,
yeah, yeah. But it was good. I
32.
mean, that's all we need is just enough
Mhm.
information on that. You know what I mean? And if we have people who, because guarantee you, like as we get closer to the event, this happening, people will,
Mhm.
start to have questions and want to talk about it. But you know what? This is Saturday, and guess what? We was the first people to talk about it. How about that?
And
I'm
you
gonna
know,
throw it
today
back
is
in all
daylight
their face.
savings time.
Throw it
We're
back in
trying to
all their
say that
face.
day.
Like, we were the.
We're trying to
It
get
was
that
all
hour
us.
in,
It
like
was, yeah.
trying to get that hour in,
You know what?
trying to get that hour in. Listen here, I remember when I used to be in the club trying to get that hour in right quick. Like trying to get that hour in, girl.
And
Listen.
you know what else too? Like after this, after the eclipse, we're gonna come back on and we're gonna monitor too, right? Because we're gonna, see what is happening or what happens after something like this monumental happens.
We're gonna wear our
And then
glasses.
yeah, and then start playing and then pay close attention to what comes next. Because I get listen, so that would have been so COVID was what 2020.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we right after we had that eclipse, we got COVID. We uh everybody went home. I mean, like there was so many things that happened after that last eclipse. So, I just
Right.
remember it just kind of
Did it
spiraling downhill. It was
did it
like,
get
oh wow,
warm?
we were so excited to hear it. And people had to remind me because people on my Instagram, because I'm on the ground and I'm not on Facebook. I'm on Facebook,
Okay.
but I haven't been active in years, you know what I mean? Just due to my job and whatnot, just to keep, extra drama down. But I'm
Right.
on the ground. So they were like, Jim, you were excited to, be a part of this solar eclipse. I mean, of this eclipse. I forget what type of eclipse it was, the last one we had. And they were like, look what happened right afterwards. People were reminding me of that. Look at all this stuff that's happened right after this eclipse. I know it was the craziest thing ever. So that's why I'm like, it's fresh in my mind. Like, wow, the last eclipse we had, shit went to the left real quick, and
Really?
so
I
like,
can't wait.
this one that we're having, there's a tiny bit of concern because it's real.
I can't listen, I can't wait. I'm gonna get me some uh I gotta get me some eclipse glasses. Turn around every now and
Those
then
are
I
not
fall
gonna work. Those
around.
are those have not been
Every
stamped
now and
certified.
then. Listen here.
For you to watch the eclipse, and don't you dare try to watch the eclipse with no sunglasses, people. You need the right types of glasses. Don't you do it.
Listen here. You gonna come back doing like this.
Can you
I'm
imagine
going there like
everybody?
this. Dun, 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 dun,
Girl,
dun, dun, dun,
I can't stand it. Yeah, they're gonna be
Where
needing
you
more
going?
than
I'm going to
more.
see the eclipse.
I want to see the eclipse. You better
I'm
not.
going to see.
People better not
I'm
wear
going to
just
see
actual
the
sunglasses thinking they can look at it. Man, they're gonna jack themselves up. They're gonna jack their eyes up. All kind of shit.
You're
Plus,
gonna
it
come
won't
back
let
like
you
three blind
listen.
mice. Three
Listen.
blind mice.
With the glasses, though, the glasses allow again. It takes away the shadow too, so that you can see the sun. So it takes away that bright glare, so that you can see the moon actually behind the sun when it actually goes there. So that's what the glasses are for. They not only protect your eyes, but they allow you to actually see the eclipse.
Spaghetti, 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 spaghetti. I'm going to see the clips. I'm going to see the clips.
I can't stand you, girl.
I'm going to see
You better have a disclaimer. People be like, look, here go people. You know what? Sakina said wear sunglasses, and we can wear sunglasses to see the eclipse. No, you can't.
I said Gladys Knight and the Pips. I ain't saying nothing about no clips. I said,
Exactly. Oh my God.
do what I do, because you're gonna go see the clips talking about some woo, what you want. Listen here, I don't even got half of my sunglasses. Listen
Oh
here,
man.
look here. We gonna look here. I'm about to pull out one of my
Where
kids'
is
movies.
look, how do you put a disclaimer up?
My bad.
Better not be digging in their drawers trying to sit here and put on those damn sunglasses.
I ain't nothing. Listen here. This what I do, especially if I be like, "Is that mine?" They be like, "No." I'm like, "Oh, okay." You know, is, it, is that is
That's
that
all
mine?
bad. They, better not. Oh man, hold on. I messed up the view. I'm so sorry. Okay,
Is
here
that
we
my
go. That's
sunglasses?
much better. Even though you can't see me at all.
I know. Listen, right. At least we can hear you. Like, oh my goodness. I ain't got but
Uh,
them two pair of glasses
oh
over here.
no.
Uh-oh. Somebody coming?
No, that was
She ain't
me
gonna I
again.
just wonder, is we on are we on private or are we on
Why you say that? Public?
I don't know. I just had that feeling.
Oh shucks. Well, if it's pre-recorded, I mean, no one
Right.
saw it. We can make it public and just download it.
Right, I feel like that song. All by myself.
You didn't see
Don't
the chat? Anybody in the chat? What happened?
Girl, frogs. Frogs. I feel like everybody is trying to get that hour in at the party. All by myself.
Sakina, they gotta still see this video.
All by my. Listen,
Ooh, no.
you gotta deal with it.
Oh shucks.
Okay, I ain't gonna sing that.
Yes, please don't see that. Don't see that. Oh
Listen,
my
I'm gonna do
God.
it. I hope everybody come see it. I want to do a poetry night. And anybody put it in the chat, put it in the back
We
chat.
should
Not you
definitely
can't put
do
it
a
in the back chat.
poetry night.
Put it in the
Yeah.
chat. Put it in the listen here. Put it somewhere where I can see it. If you're a poet, I know it's a lot of rappers out here. Rap is poetry, right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
want to hear it. We want to do a poetry night, right? I'm a poet and don't know it, but let's see who else has got some poetry up in their floetry. Let's see where it's at. Let's hear it, right? Nothing to it but to do it, right? Let's see what you have. Let's come on, y'all. We can share. Sharing is
What
caring.
you say? Ain't nothing to it but to do it. Yeah, we should definitely have poetry night. I'm with that.
Yes,
Especially
yes.
over the summer. Yeah.
Come on.
Seriously.
Right. We can do a poetry night and come on, y'all, and let it flow. I remember going to the like I said, they had comedy and poetry nights. Listen here, it goes hard. Right? They have jazz in the park. They don't do that up here. Right, because I'll take me a summer vacation and I'll take man, we can go anywhere and listen here. We'll share and be out here and I'll show y'all where it's happening at. But go to www. Old people be kicking it like a mf.com
Okay.
because they show out here
Man.
doing, but listen here, I don't know. It's scary out here too. I don't know.
Yeah,
Mm,
that's true.
it done got scary out here. Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
Because I know
Okay,
last
well,
night.
we got somebody in Hebrew coming on tomorrow. You want to sit here and tell everybody about what's coming tomorrow?
Oh, listen. If they show up tonight, they'll know that we have something special coming on tomorrow. Otherwise, you catch it in the circulation. Ain't that circulating around right now?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So we got some circulation going on. Maybe we got frogs because we didn't show up yesterday. Was something in the circulation yesterday? Maybe they feel like we stood them up stranded at the drive-in. Branded a fool. What will they say? Maybe we should do a
Mhm.
karaoke night. No music.
No, we should
Just
not do
karaoke.
it. Another karaoke night
Yes,
till
we
not unless
should.
it's
Listen here.
Friday extra
Anybody
late. Extra late.
listen
I'm
here.
not
I
messing
don't
around with
care.
y'all and y'all
Hey
karaoke.
nephew. I'm glad my nephew just woke up. Come on in. Come
Oh,
on in.
Marcus.
I don't care if you can't sing. Jay, you know the one that like to give you that
Oh,
smoke.
Jay. Yes. Hey, Jay.
Listen, I don't care if you can't sing. You can sing to me. I don't care. Everybody can sing. We don't own the rights
Mm.
to this music. We can sing it how we want to. We ain't Beyonce, so we don't have to
Well, you
sing
would
like
definitely sing the way you want to, for sure.
for sure.
For sure.
For sure. You said it just right on time. Nephew Jay, what you want to talk about? You want to come up? We can have a whole heated discussion. We ain't black.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, Jay needs to hit the link because I got a few questions for him.
Yeah, hit the
Seriously.
link, Jay.
Yeah,
hit,
seriously.
hit
Yeah,
the
Jay and
link.
I. Yeah, come on. Let's
Right,
let's chit chat for a little bit.
right. Where are Negroes from?
Yeah, that part. Slave, chains and you know what? And I will say he is doing a darn good job keeping
Yes, he
everybody on their
is.
toes with, some of these hot button because see what it is that we already know
Oh,
and we have already
yeah,
confirmed,
Marcus,
right?
you can come too. We can find out. Is
Are you
Lipton
listening, Sakina?
really?
Are you listening,
Hold
Sakina-Ra?
on, okay, listen. I'm trying to pull J and Marcus at the same time. I'm listening now.
Okay. Um, we already know that negativity feeds our collective, and so if it's the truth or if it's a topic where we have to tell the truth about all the lies, people are not exactly interested in that because they don't know enough of the truth to tell it. They just know all of the lies, and
Right.
so all of the lies is much better. That's a much better deal than than per se having some form of truth to
Exactly.
the conversation. So we know that's not going to happen. You can forget that,
You're right.
but I appreciate Jay for, always coming up, still being truthful, about a lot of things and trying to get people in on the conversation to dispel, myth busters. And the biggest myth buster is that we have going on right now. For whatever reasons, we have to sit here and convince people that slavery was a real thing and that the issues that went on with slavery, and even as it regarding classification and all those kind of things, there's always so much information in between, that they don't want to talk about. That's the part right there that's like negative. I've been doing, research
Yes.
for 1,050 million billion years. And, you know, this is what I've come up with, neglecting or skipping right over, or even sometimes duping people with a different type of timeline,
Yes. Exactly.
So what you gonna do with that? That timeline is real important when you're talking about whatever you're talking about. That's how we sit here and know people lying from the beginning because the timeline don't match. You can't make the math ain't mathing,
Not at all.
and
Not
all
at
the
all. That's what
above.
I just said there about them damn when we talking about adding them numbers up because everything ends up with math.
And I mean, and seriously, but we talk about enough math to know, where seriously, for the most part, that when people are not being honest, the timeline doesn't match, and they will sit here and argue, debate you to death, right? About, something that's being said, but the timeline doesn't match what you're talking about. But somehow that timeline kind of gets skipped over, breezed over. Like, hey, it doesn't matter what year we put this thing in. She like a deck of cards. Pick one. Oh man.
That's all I'm saying. Girl, listen. Dang it. What I do? I done hit something I ain't supposed to hit. Dang it. I'm always doing something wrong.
What happened?
I was trying to I was telling the nephews to join the panel and then I hit something. It
No,
went somewhere
shucks.
else.
Yeah, that
Right.
was me. My camera. I finally got my camera to working after all those settings,
Okay.
and now then I hit something, and now it doesn't work again.
Okay, no man.
Like it always happens like that. Like that's so messed up. Because I really be wanting to cam up,
Right.
but if my camera's not working, then it's hard for me to do that.
Yay, peace, nephew.
Hello.
Hey
Well,
Jay,
hello there.
Hey, what's up? Can
nothing
you hear
much.
me?
What's going on?
Nothing. I'm just in bed. What's
Did you
going
catch
on?
the slideshow?
I literally just woke up.
Oh, okay, okay.
What was it on the Eclipse? The videos?
Yep, yep. Yeah, we're going hard in that because, there's an after effect for the eclipse as well, which is of a great concern because that last one we had, did a little damage. And so this is one of the more powerful eclipse that we're going to have because this one doesn't happen except every so many hundreds of years, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so anytime you get those eclipse that happens where there's a long or large span, when they happen, they affect the certain geographical locations,
Yeah.
and so that's something to everyone's going to keep their eye closely, you know uh, on this one because there could be tsunamis, there could be weird weather, there could be all sorts of stuff that's going to take place right afterwards.
Mm.
And kind of before, because we're still experiencing some, right? But some of this, I'm gonna say that again.
Spring
Some
came
of it,
early. Spring came
yeah,
early, and I've been telling y'all about spring because that was you, Jay. Wasn't you, Jay? When I was saying, "Wait a minute, spring is here," you said, "Not where I live at. Where do you live at, Gemini, or
Yeah.
something like that?"
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
me.
and I told y'all before that groundhog ain't got shit on me. I kept saying, "Look at what's going on," and everyone kept saying, "Look at what?" And I'm like, "This is fucking spring." And they're like, wait, what? Next thing you know, they have this stupid ass groundhog saying, oh, well, it's, spring is coming early. Duh. All
Well,
you had to do
define
was
spring.
surround you.
Define spring. What's spring?
Spring is
it's
where
it's
is the reason why we're getting ready to have this time forward because the sun is staying out a lot longer than it sets. So the sun has been staying out 4:30, 5 o'clock, 5:30 for months now. We literally started winter December the 27th.
Mm.
And before the end of February, it was already staying sunny. The sunlight was already staying out a lot longer before March and April.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
And it's like, man, I mean, and it was like completely noticeable this year. So like when Sakina's saying, like, there could be pre and post eclipse effects. That might be true. Definitely post effects. I haven't really paid attention to any pre effects, but yeah, I'm not, I'm pretty sure that's not too far off.
And Jay, remember that we was on your channel, we was having a little lesson about polar, we
North
was talking
Pole.
about, yeah, we was talking
Yes.
about the polars and the magnetic poles. Remember we was
Mm-hmm.
talking about the north,
Yes.
yeah, and I was
We were
in,
talking about north and true north, and the
Mm-hmm.
compass
right,
has been wrong for over 300 and what 20 something years of the
exactly,
compass being wrong, right? And then we were defining what was north, and then what is defined as true
true
north.
north,
Mm-hmm.
right. And then and I was telling y'all that it had to be a south, and the magnetic was it had to be a based on a south and a magnetic south. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Jay, get your
Okay.
auntie.
Okay, because I found my literature book. Remember how I pulled out my Bible and I gave
Yes.
you that page with those symbols? Remember,
Symbols,
because I
yeah.
said we connecting dots, right?
Right.
So I pulled out my literature book because I was doing the research on this, and guess what? That
Okay.
it had the same information about the true north and how the true north wasn't based on this and that, just like you said. But it also said that the magnetic for the true north and the magnetic was exactly the south.
Mm.
Mm.
Oh, okay. So you're
Right. And
Okay.
telling me.
so the
Okay.
true
Okay.
the magnetic for the south north is the true magnetic. So the south pole is the magnetic field for that. You see what I'm saying? And so when we go into Pangea,
Okay,
it
wait a
gets
minute.
into
Slow that
all of
down,
that.
Sakina-Ra. No, 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 no.
Okay, well I got
Slow
my
that
book right
down
here.
for the
Y'all
people
gonna
in
have
the back. Okay,
to, all
slow that
right.
down for the people in the back. So, are we
Mm-hmm.
All
saying
right.
that
We're gonna
this
start with
is
this.
predicated upon north or true north, where
Okay.
the South Pole matters? Which one?
Okay, because one is because they could never base a true actual for north. So there was never a basis for an actual or a true. Um, it always had to be based because it was always off. It's always been off. There was never an actual true. Let me go back to find it because there was never an actual true north. It was always um. Let me go back to it because I had to leave it because the only reason I had to cross magnetic fields and only read what I needed to read because that's not what I was into right there at that time. And that gets into weather, and I was not really getting into weather.
Yeah, we're not talking about weather at all.
Well, that's really where magnetic and whatever that is goes along with. And that's not really
Yeah, no, it didn't go nothing along with what we were talking about at all. I don't care if weather is directly related. It still had nothing
well
to do with what we were talking
it
about.
it has to do with weather and geography, and this is the thing. So, in a sense, when you look at the world in its totality, it engulfs all of it. It engulfs
Okay, but we
science.
wasn't looking
I
at it in
mean,
its totality. We were isolating a specific event or time or thing or place.
but they don't.
Isolating being the key word, not totality.
Well, they don't really isolate a magnetic field or none of those things when it comes
But
to
we
that.
were, because we wasn't never talking about the magnetic field. We were talking about the compass being wrong and them actually having a compass that reads north or true north.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying.
Mm.
That's what
Get
I'm
your
saying.
auntie Jay.
A north and a true north, right? But that still has something to do with the compass because that still was based on hold on, let me find it
We
because
just want to know how. For me, I'm not even gonna say we, me. I
okay.
want to know how the South factors in. That's it. The South magnetic pull. factors in because is it because it's the direct opposite of the north magnetic
Mm.
pull?
No, because there's a fake magnetic line. Is what I'm trying to tell y'all too. Wait, I gotta find it. There's listen, hold on. So you got a magnetic field that surrounds parameters. Um, it's a compass that lines up north and south directions, and the magnetic field is poorly understood. The changes in direction of the magnetic field has occurred from time to time, and sometimes the north and south pole, and near that is near geographic north and south, and is sometimes near the north and south in Antarctica. The causes of these are reversal and they are not known, but at least several hundreds of them have happened. So they do shift.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I remember telling me and somebody had this conversation about them shifting, and they said they don't, which they do. The spots on the earth toward this, which compasses the needle that will point, but the north magnetic pole is not locally exact on a geographic north pole. Therefore, depending on where the compass is, the needle may not point exactly north. The variation between the north and true north is usually is is usually shown on a navigation map as the angle of the declination. Right. Now they have what something is called like a invisible magnetic line or something like that. I gotta find it because that makes the difference because that line does not exist for real, but it's a fake line. And that's what I'm trying to go for. This line
Okay,
does
so
not
then that
exist.
hold on, press pause, hold on, because we got to take some breaths between that. Listen, so Jay, remember
Yes.
how? So we were talking about too, coming up with some, hypothesis about why that compass didn't work, why it was showing north but not true north, and
Mm-hmm.
then we put it together as 320 years. That's my time, your time, and this time. So that was like 300, that was 300 and some odd years dating all the way up to, was it 2022, Jay? What year did you say that was? 2023?
Uh, it may have been like 2020. Yeah, one of those.
Okay, 2022. That's everybody's time 300 dating 320 something years back. That's the 60s, the
Here you
70s,
go.
all the good years that everybody liked. The 40s
Mm.
of being wrong and being misinformed. And that was the point of that, right? Like, some of that information that we're coming out with as it pertains to, those compasses, more than likely it affected, the longitude, latitude of a thing because that compass reads right south, north, east, and west. And every time it was saying north, it was wrong for the last 300 some odd years,
Right.
which then they were probably northeast, northwest, north, south, but never really truly being all the way north up until now, up until recent, where they
Mm-hmm.
realized that they have
Right.
made this mistake and they have made use more than likely, guarantee you, a different material in that compass, and it's reading, picking up a true north versus a north.
Mm.
No, I don't think it's the compass. I believe. See, listen, this right here.
Hold on, you're breaking up, Sakina.
Imaginary geographic line defined by the fact that water poured on one side and it would ultimately flow into the ocean on one side of the continent while
No, you got a
Sakina.
delay now.
yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Read that paragraph one more time, please.
All right. It says, and All right. It says an imaginary geographic line defined by the fact that water pour on one side of it would ultimately flow on one side of the ocean, on one side of the continent, while water poured on one side of the line into the ocean on the other side of the continent. This is a continental divide. This is why.
What does that
You
have to
see what
do
I'm
with the
saying?
compass?
This is
No,
why
no,
there
no. I
is
don't
that
see what you're saying.
imaginary line.
No, I understand, and I know what
This
an imaginary
line does
line is.
not exist.
Okay, no, we know that. Listen,
Okay.
we know why they even call it the imaginary line, right? There's a reason for that. But what I'm saying is this: that whole entire conversation was based off of a
No, see,
compass, because that is what people were using
see,
to
Marcus
navigate the
says right.
seas.
So the magnets will have two poles fields that flow between the poles, and this is where the composed points. The fields and poles were based on the Earth core splits in its variables when the Earth rotates change. So this imaginary where they trying to say water takes from one side shifts, which is a fake imaginary line made and things go off on one side or the other. So the
No,
line could
that
not
line
be
is
straight.
always there. That is the divide. That is the divide. That is how we know that, like you said, one water goes this way and the other parts of the water go that way. There's lots of imaginary lines that they call imaginary lines because there is no real line. The imaginary line is because man have to put it there because we realize that's where the separation is. So then they just call it an imaginary line because there is no real line within that is dividing that. They cannot, they're just saying, hey, here's the end of something and the beginning of something else that's in a natural organic flow or order. And then they're saying this is the divide. So that is called the imaginary line. So that's not going to change.
They
It's
didn't
going to
call it
always
an
be.
imaginary line. They saying is they called it the continental divide, and behind it was the continental shift that came from the continental divide. So, and that's what shifted the two titanic plates. So one thing explains the other, but the divide was an imaginary line
No,
that
don't
made the
say
two titanic
imaginary like that. No, don't
plates
say, no, you can't use
shift.
imaginary like
So
that.
they,
That's
of
the wrong
course,
way
they're
to
going to
use
say
imaginary.
imaginary because the line didn't exist. However, the plates exist.
We know that. That's why they call it that. That is always gonna be. That's never going to change. That is
They're saying it existed. I'm not saying it existed. They saying it existed.
no,
That's
they're
like
not
saying
saying, they're not
the
actually
ocean is
saying
hot.
anything, right? They're just giving us
It's in the
confines
book.
of.
I'm not just making it up.
No, I know, but it has nothing to do with why, that compass for 320 years was reading one way. And now it's they realize that, there is, it had been misleading people for 300 and some odd years. That was
They've
the
been knew
conversation.
that it's been misleading people. No, they been knew that. That ain't not new. This
No,
book
they
is
ain't been
old
new
as
nothing.
J.
No, they did
They
not
been knew
been
that.
new.
This book,
No, they did not mislead people on
what?
purpose.
This book old as J. This book been here since
Jay, get your
1780. What do
auntie.
you
That's
mean they just J ain't just old? This book has been
Sakina,
there since
no, we
1780. They
ain't
ain't
doing
just
this.
new to this. They ain't just found that compass has been off track. They been knew that compass been off track. What are we
They
saying?
ain't being knew that.
They
They
been
thought
knew
they
that
was right
compass
and
ain't been
exact.
doing this
They did
too
not
long.
being know nothing. They did not
Maybe
being,
in
they
the
did not
1800s
being
they
know
did,
this.
but not since they wrote this book. Yes, they did. They knew that
No,
when they
they
wrote this
didn't.
damn book. They knew that when
No,
they wrote this
listen.
book. They knew when
No,
they wrote that. Listen
no.
here,
I'm gonna tell you
they
the
knew.
exact reason why they did not know that is because we can even date something back to 1900 and almost damn near use the language like, oh, damn, that was Neanderthal time, right? So, and when we say Neanderthal, we mean, people who are not, in the up to date type of, world and existence that we are in today. So, if we go 300 years, what year does that put us in? They did not know, because they ain't had no information or no technology or no shit telling them they was wrong. They thought they was right and exact.
Okay, but if that be the case, Gemini, why they ain't made a true north? They all these years and they ain't
And that was
corrected
what
true
Jay's
north, and yet
article
they
was
still out
about.
there fishing.
They did. That's
They
what
don't
Jay's
have. They
article
got a
was
compass
about.
now that corrects true north.
Yes.
And when did they correct true north?
Jay, will
Because
you
it's
tell
been
her?
not
Tell
true
your
north
auntie
for
what happened?
years.
What
And
had
when did they
happened?
correct it?
Please update your auntie.
When did
Thank
they
you
correct
very
true
much.
north?
Yeah,
2000 what?
I don't know. I don't really
They
want to.
corrected it.
I don't want to speak too
No,
much
do
because
it.
I'm not the
No,
I'm not
do
the
it.
scientist. That's why I think this is important, that the knowledge is compounded by daily study, so that it becomes something that's more comfortable and familiar. I'm not really most comfortable speaking about this type of stuff. I don't know enough. Marcus in the
Why?
chat, Marcus seemed like he know a little bit.
Marcus said he was driving, but it's not like it's each one teach one, reach one. The point is that for the longest they didn't know it was true north, but they knew it was true north, and the issue was
No, they just knew
correcting
it
it.
was north, not
So
true
I'm
north.
not saying one way or another, right? Because
No. We're gonna correct that right here, right now. Listen.
well,
They
they
thought
knew
they
it
were
wasn't
listen.
true
The reason
north
why we
because
even
it
have
speaks it even in the book.
the reason why we even have a north and a true north is because
Well,
they were going north and always thought that was true north they were headed to. When they realized that, oh my gosh, and after a couple hundred years, they definitely realized they were that it was not
Deviated.
reading
Right.
a true north, but they didn't have the technology to change, change the distribution of compasses. And at that time, who were you gonna go tell that shit to? Nobody. You see what I'm saying? And so now, if you was to sit here and sound the alarm, there are people, places, and things where you can go and say, hey, this information is incorrect, because we are in the information technology age, right? And so we have protocols, we have processes, there's lots of stuff in place. And so you catch things like that now. But they didn't have the means to catch it back when, and that's how you discover, oh, they were going north, south, northwest, northeast. They were never going true north at all for 300 and some odd years.
but they
That
were
makes
still
that
going north.
migration. Anytime we talk about this migration pattern 200 and some odd years ago, it makes it real significant.
So
We
they
got
were
people
still going north. They just wasn't going
no
straight
true
north.
north. Yeah, that's right. They was going north somewhere.
But they just wasn't going where they thought they was going.
Wait a minute, hold on. That article said too, Sakina. Hold on, Jay and Sakina. Listen, that article actually said too. Sometimes when it was real off, they were actually going on. They were south, close to north. You see what I'm saying? It had took them way, way, way far. And parts of the South, they're like, nah, we're, getting off that shit. Like, nah, we're north. No, you're not. Excuse you. It explains, to be honest, and I'm not trying to give Christopher Columbus no goddamn pass. But when he say there was a bit of confusion, now this allows you to believe that shit. Like, yeah, because when you fucking got here, when you got here, there were people here. And when you went to wherever you were going, there were people there. So what did you discover exactly? What is going on? Yeah, the damn compass misled you, led you astray, hoodwinked
Now, if
you.
it took him south when it should have took him north, I'm gonna start thinking they was drinking. I know doggone well, true north, and then you end up going south. I know doggone well. The compass was
No, on
broke,
the
but
borders
somebody
between
was
South
drunk.
and North. No, that they almost mirror each other, right? There's not a significant geographic change on the borders of South and North.
Then what the compass
They
is
darn near
for?
look just alike when you're that close.
In the water, east and west and north and south all look alike. So what was the compass for
No,
if
they
it
don't
didn't
all
know?
look alike. Some place
Well, in
that
the
would be like
middle of the
me
water,
sitting
you
here
don't
saying
know
that
north, south,
California
east, and west from
resembles
standing in the middle of
DC,
a
and it
lake.
does not.
And standing in the middle of a lake, you know north, south, east from west.
Oh my gosh. That was what we were saying earlier before the conversation.
Exactly.
Okay. Were we not
So
talking about that?
how did he get? That's all I'm saying. From in the middle of a right. So if he leave port, then he was gonna know north, south, east from west. But standing in the middle of the water, how did you? Not unless he was drunk. He would have to be drunk and just
Well,
stop in the
okay.
middle of the water and just know
Listen,
north, south, east from west.
what what about the water? I'm sorry, I'm coughing too, hacking. But wait,
Mhm.
what about this water makes such a significant change? Because the whole reason for the compass is that the land was easy to navigate, but the water not so much. So they needed a tool, a resource, right? Something that they can use while they're in the water specifically. So yeah, you're gonna so they invent, right? So the compass became a thing, a real type of thing to help them more on water than so land.
Yeah, I know they had a concept of celestial north using the stars, but what would happen when like the clouds would take over if there was a storm, they would lose sense of the direction because they couldn't
Right.
locate the star anymore.
Yeah, I can see that
Yeah, because
happening.
I'm gonna need help. Because I don't know how you would end up going south. Not unless
No, not
y'all got
south,
turned
but
around.
close to south, where south meets north, right? Going headed in that direction, right? So they were going literally, that article was saying literally they were, I forget what type of seasons they call it. They were going all over the place. And that compass was saying, hey, this is north. We're headed north, right? You hit land because you're going north. Not that land was actually, true north, but that compass was reading, hey, it says we must be going north because we're going to rely on this compass because we don't know. So we're going to rely on this tool. And then
Man.
people say, and here's the catch for me. People say, oh, they equate it to the computer, right? Oh, AI is going to get you, the computer's going to take over. Well, hell, we just found out something that was 300 and some odd years ago, and it was not AI, and it was misleading you, misleading the people. How about
Yeah.
that? How about that? What no AI? Didn't no AI make that mistake?
Well, it wasn't it wasn't an AI like that.
Right?
Well,
That
no
compass
wow.
was what the look that compass was the AI of the day, of that. Like we got this great invention, this compass.
Yeah, they was using the stars, so that was the AI. Hey, oh, you.
Yeah.
But I can see that part.
And I mean, I
Like,
can see if it was, I mean, if they were talking about a butter knife, really wouldn't make much sense to talk about it or even go in this depth, but because they're talking about a compass, something that we know people have used for all this time, all these years. I don't even know how far back the compass actually goes. Let me look and see how, when the first compass came about.
cool with the Vikings. with the
Okay,
Vikings.
so they're saying 202 BC to 220 AD. Jay, can you translate?
For a compass, I mean that's definitely a
That's what they're
compass.
saying. Yeah, yeah. They're saying the invention of the compass is attributed to the ancient Chinese, the Han Dynasty, which lasted from 202 BC to 220 AD, and it is where the compass history begins more than 2,000 years ago.
Well, I didn't know that. Contrary to
Yeah.
popular belief, I would like to look into what type of compass it is, what type of materials is used. Is it a magnetic base? Is it a sundial? What is it?
I don't know. I'm just let me. You know what? Let me sit here and share my screen to show you what it pulled up because we can
Mm-hmm.
go other places and really, kind of like just do a surface dive into the, into what they're saying.
with the sundial,
Yeah,
because we know that was had to probably, well, unless I know none to be older than that. The sundial was a calendar too, wasn't it?
Mm. That remind me of even who was it? The Inca, the Maya that had some type of calendar, and people thought the world was gonna end 2012 or something like that. But yeah, I would like to look into that type of
yeah,
stuff too.
exactly, exactly.
Mm. I
Ancient
don't know where I
calendars.
read. Yeah.
Mm. That's crazy. You could click that link. Don't just put your feet in the water, jump in. Dude, I got questions now. You gotta make me ask questions. The history of the compass dates back over 2,000 years to the Han Dynasty in ancient China. The initial compasses were crafted from lodestone, a naturally magnetized
Mm.
iron stone. Okay, so it did have iron. These
Pointing the
early
fish.
compasses were known as South Pointing Fish and were used for land navigation during the mid 11th century in the Song Dynasty. Okay.
Hold on, this Marcus right here.
Mm-hmm.
Peace, nephew. How are you? He's still coming in.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Peace. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you for joining.
No problem.
Bring that information, Marcus, because we need it, man.
Come on.
So I just wanted to clarify about the whole poles, the magnetic poles and stuff. So um the compasses are wrong, but they're wrong based on an actual known science. So it's not so much so that they were ultimately ignorant of it, but it's just that there's so many variables in the Earth's magnetic field that the compasses are subjugated to those variations and those changes. So, like the way it's currently posted, um, the magnetic South Pole and the magnetic North Pole are offset from true north, um, and it's actually been that way for quite a long time. But the results of those variations, those shifts, we call them the northern lights. So when you go look at the northern lights, you're looking at our magnetic field blocking solar radiation, right? But where the magnetic field exits and enters our Earth is at different locations in true north. So true north
Okay,
is
so
just a
you're saying it was
geological.
outdated, right? You're saying like it was outdated because there's, like you said, there's so many different variables within the magnetic field that a compass wouldn't be clearly reading it right in the first place, because it would always interfere with, with the actual direction of things.
Well, it would always be subjugated to those changing fluctuations in our magnetic
Yes,
field. It's not that it
absolutely.
didn't. It's not that it didn't point north. It's that it didn't point true north. It never did. But it gives you a general sense. Then
Okay.
you would also use other geological features to help make proper adjustment.
Hmm.
So you would look at the sky,
Right.
right? And so
Celestial
you would
north.
so
Okay, but wait, I
right.
have a question in between there though. You said it never did. So are you stating that you can sit here and show sources where the world just as it pertains to the magnetic field and the fluctuations, that it was always fluctuating like this from the beginning, or were there gradual changes up
No,
until up
there
until this
are
point?
there are gradual changes, and you can see it in the pottery. So there are small iron iodized particles in pottery. One of the ways they can mine it. Also in volcanic ashes. That's another story. That always points in a certain direction based on the magnetic field. And you can gradually see changes where it gets weaker and stronger. That's one type of fluctuation you have. But then you just have normal fluctuations throughout years. Like it's not consistent. You can hear sometimes you hear them talk about it. Um, Sometimes you hear them talk about either they'll say there's a very strong solar flare that's going to make the northern lights brighter. Sometimes they'll say that the
Yeah,
northern lights
yeah,
could be
yeah,
brighter.
yeah.
So those that's what they're talking. They're just fluctuations that happen. Then you have the general switch. You have pole switch. Pole switches is when the like I said right now it exits. It kind of exits from the south and into the north. Our magnetic field. Um, but periodically you have large switches where it goes reverse. So it exits from the north, what we consider north, and it enters in the south. That's what they call
See,
pole
what
shifts.
we could
That
I
happens as
just
well.
said that. Did I say that, Sakina? Yes. Because you can see that happening. So again, I think that, for me, what I need to know is, because the article that me and Jay and Sakina that night we're talking about was an article that said that, for 300, and it gave a specific number, 320 something years, 340
Hmm.
something years, they realized the compass had been wrong, not pointing ever for that long. That's when they feel like they caught it at that year, at that point, right? um up until the present, that it had never been showing true north.
Right. So
Just
so true north, but true north is a geological location, and it's based on not just it's based on the fact that the Earth is on a tilt, and so that's called the declination line. And so yeah, they wasn't aware that the compass did not point exactly true north. They knew it pointed northward, right? So that's
Mm.
the
northward,
conclusion that the
yes.
compass, right. So the compass points northward, but you also use other um, things to indicate direction, and then culture plays a role. So
Right.
certain cultures, like in Australia, and certain indigenous cultures, they have a different way of uh, declaring where north is.
Right. They
So
orient
how
their
long are you
maps
dating
differently.
this? Back.
Right. They orient them out.
Sorry about that,
Yeah.
Jay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just, supporting what you're saying. Different cultures orient their maps. Some put east at the top, some put south at the top. Depending on
Right.
their culture, it could be a religious thing where they'll put east at the top, you know?
Mm,
Yeah.
Correct.
yeah, I'm
So
making that
that's
correlation. Yeah.
they now have I put in the chat the actual tool that they use that makes the adjustments for that. But then GPS works off of the same thing. So it's been known for a while that the compasses don't point to true north; they point
Right.
to the magnetic pole north. Um,
Well, you're
and
saying
that's
a while,
just
and they're
how it
saying
works.
320 something years, which is still technically a
Well,
while.
well,
You see what
Gemini,
I'm saying? And
with
that's
the
why I was always
article,
asking you,
I think
how far did you date this back for,
To
by
what
your
knowing
estimation?
to knowing the
They're
difference
saying,
between
yeah, because
true
they're
north
saying
and
300 and
magnetic
something,
north.
320 something years. Yeah.
I'm not sure that could be accurate when they finally dissected what true north is. But I mean that would take you knowing exactly the tilt and the size of the earth. Like it's if I was to draw a circle, right? Um, no, I can't do it because we only do 2 dimension. A 3 dimension or a globe, like you know how the globes they used to have in the classroom. You know how they
I
got
got
those
one.
two metal rods sticking up, and then they got it tilted some, and you can spin it and you see it rotate.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
okay, if you ever turn that straight up, you will see what they're talking about. So imagine we looking at the Earth straight up, not on the tilt. Then your declination line wouldn't be as far apart as they are now. It would
If
be
it was,
closer to
yeah.
being matched up. But we're not. We're on a tilt. We're on an angle. So we're actually tilted. So that makes a difference on where true north is.
Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. Yeah, but it's still bad business nonetheless, because again, if
Let's
we're
get
talking
into
about
it.
300 years,
mhm.
what exactly date was that? And people relied on that up until the present. And I'm saying that's what we were taught in school. That's what your parents were taught in school. Your parents before them. That kind of stuff matters because that is, where how misinformation and rumors start when you don't have, you can't make that a fact, or like a rumor is something that's not a fact. You see what I'm saying? And so it's like it's a big deal to 300 and something years, 20 something years of being wrong and being navigated. And then again, if you try to, correlate any
On
type of
that tilt.
migration 200 years, ago, that's going to put people in places and things that they weren't.
It's saying the article I just got it. It said in September 2019, for the first time in over 360 years, compasses at Greenwich pointed true north. But what does this mean? And haven't compasses always pointed north? So I think what it's saying is that for the first time in 360 years, true north and magnetic north were in alignment.
Yeah, ain't that something?
Correct.
Ain't that
And so
something? Yes.
it was close to a line. I mean, it was close. So it shifts magnetic. That's why I said there's fluctuations in the magnetic pole. It gets closer, farther away. Um, it switches from north to south. I mean, it does a lot of. It's fascinating. I don't think we
So
had a
they
pole
know it's
switch.
very fascinating. It's to
Yeah, I don't
me,
think
it's very
I
fascinating.
don't think we had a
Yes.
pole switch in over 300 some odd thousand years. So those pole switches they were quite frequent, but I think it's been a long time since the last time.
Mm-hmm.
And we're at one of our. I think the last article I read about it, the magnetic field was weaker than what they reported at another time. Not to the point where it switched, but it was weaker, in which lets more radiation into the atmosphere, which then, of course, heats up the
Yeah, I
planet.
was just going to actually clarify that. Like, what are they talking about? What do they mean when they say weaker? Um, is it, just weaker in how they're reading it, or weaker in, like you said, the radiation, or weaker in, something else in regards? Like, how do they know that? What are they measuring it by?
I guess you can monitor it through a lot of ways. I don't know if you ever played with magnets in school, where they put iron, like little small pieces like the iron shavings, and then you move a magnet, and the iron shavings go into a type of shape.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the magnetic field. And what happens is, Our magnetic field is based on the iron and molten metal that is in the core of the Earth that's spinning.
Mm.
That's
Oh,
what
okay.
generates the magnetic field. But that
Yes,
core is
that makes
molten
sense.
lava. Yeah, metal is moving real fast, but it doesn't move at a constant rate. And so
Yes, that
sometimes
makes
it's
sense.
slow, sometimes it speeds up. There's certain areas where it's actually flowing slightly different, directional. Um, and so
Yeah,
these
it's been
cause
a
things things.
yeah, let me interrupt because it's been exploding a lot lately, and we know that, and we've been experiencing the tsunamis and whatnot too. So for every action there's a reaction, so therefore we can say that's where it's being lost at, that's where it's losing strength, because we just recently had how many volcanoes erupt, right?
Well, and it was a lot of water incidents or
No,
catastrophes or
that's
phenomenon last year.
right,
Yeah,
those
with
are
water and then
tsunamis.
yeah,
You
and
only
just
can
the
count the
volcanoes.
ones that are catastrophic. Some of these tsunamis were not nature. Some of those were natural, and nature took the blame. We're talking about from the titanic plates, the ones that happened from natural. When the titanic plates have that fusion, that's a natural thing. Those happen from the equator. Those are a different thing that from that shift, from the magnitude from that shift. When the and me and you have seen several Gemini, several volcanic things. That volcanic magnum comes from this equator. That is where this comes from. So this again is that energy or whatever we want to call it, that magnum that comes from within, from the equator, from the hemisphere. That you see what I'm saying? This is where the loss is coming from, right? And so when that equator erupted in Greensfield, that took a township out, and then it came again for the days that it burnt out, right? These are the situations we talking about when you're talking about it's melting Greenwich, it's melting, right? These are in the Arcticas. So this is all the stuff we talking about right now. These are the results of those things right there. Because otherwise, if you didn't have those things, then you wouldn't lose the force of the magnetic field. That's where the South Pole is from these things he's talking about.
Right. No, listen. I'm listening to you. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Marcus. I'm just trying to answer the question as we go. Marcus?
Oh, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I wanted to do. Just talk about that part right there. It's fascinating, but sometimes you hear them talk about it. Some of the proponents, I guess you would say, of the global warming, this is one of the things that they use in their arguments against it, is the fact that the fluctuations of the magnetic field changes where more sunlight is entering in when the magnetic field is weakest, or when it's weakening, allowing for the earth to heat up. And, it shifts, it changes all the time. It changes all the time. That's all I wanted to say, just clarify that part. You know, um, it's significant in our weather patterns. It plays a significant role in our agriculture system as well. So it's worth knowing about, at least looking into to some degree, because at its weakest times, you may be able to grow crops a little earlier than normal, because the weather is a little warmer than normal. But you know how that goes. Um, so you may get more severe weather during that period of time. You could have some minor interruptions in your cell phone coverage and things like that. The flares are able to enter more radiation is able to enter that can cause disruptions in some electrical systems. So it's a significant thing. It's just worth looking into. I think I posted the type of compass that takes into consideration that and the
Where'd you
differences
post it at?
in the chat.
Oh, okay. I can't see the. Yeah, I can't see the. Let's
I
see.
have to post it in here because I don't think the hyperlink went. So
Oh,
I'll
okay.
post it in here where you can see it. I had a
Okay.
nice
Yeah. Yeah.
article
Thank you.
of
Yeah.
it
Appreciate it.
that talks about it. Let me pull it back up.
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. That was. Yeah. That. I'm telling you, this compass thing for me is like, man. It. I almost take it personal when. Um, excuse me. When they do things, with one intent in mind, but because they were so un unadvanced, right? And thinking that they were true north, thinking that they were true everything else, and really rearrange and discom. I mean, it was just nothing but a bunch of confusion and chaos for a very long time. And now, because we are in an actual position to have technology and advancement, we can see where all the mistakes were and what happened exactly. And it's like I get so offended when it's like you have put and displaced so many people within 300 and some odd years, 60 years. What would that date back to? Just about the 1700s? Somewhere like
Mhm.
Yeah,
that?
but
Eight-
wouldn't
1800s?
yeah, but
I mean,
can you imagine? So not to ruin, right? But in 300 years, people will be saying the same thing about what we think.
yeah,
Like
but at
like
least, but it's okay though, right? Because guess what? I'd rather be 50 in advance than 49. Right? I'd rather be the much
no
higher number.
no
If
what
you're
I'm what
saying that we're going to be measured by the same, types of attributes or in characteristics in our behavior, they're going to be looking at psychology, they're going to be looking at everything, right? Everything that we do in 300 some odd years. But it's okay because we're a lot further than the people who were behind us. That's my point. Like, I don't care. My number's still higher than theirs. So if they have to
yeah,
learn from us, then so be it.
but my thing about it is that those people 300 years ago based the information on the information that was readily available there. We've expanded some now, but in 300, 400 years from now, people will be saying they can't believe we believe some of the things that we believe based on the
Yeah, let's hope
technology
they
that they
do
have.
though. Yeah, I understand that crystal clear. And that's why, I want to be on that end that says, hey, generations. Because one good thing about that word ancestor is it encompass, past, future, and present, right? So it's like, to be quite honest, I've never been in a conversation, and we can even just use my son for an example, where he's passed on. He was 16, but that still would make him an ancestor because he passed on, right? So there's still that criteria of you having to be passed on in order to be an ancestor. So then we therefore have people who have passed on behind us, people who are passing on in the present, and people who are going to pass on afterwards. So let's hope that we all, or that by the time we're done with everything, we are conveying the message that, yeah, keep on finding the damn truth. Please and thank you. This is where we left off. Here's what y'all got to work with. I'm all for that. That's a real type of thing. That goes back to the conversation that, I had with someone. We were talking about our children and we were talking about the different age groups. And because I have, six children, I have a lot of different generations. So some are grouped together and some are not. But I have children all the way up to 30 something, as young as 20. My 30-year-olds in them grew up with that IG thought generation. And your body and your hair and everything has to be perfect in A1 in order to do anything in this world. That's the way they made it seem, right? But my 20-year-old does not subscribe to that. They cannot stand the fact that women, once upon a time, let them tell it, right? Took off their clothes, was, low key prostituting online. That's not what technology is designed for. So she has inclusiveness already in her. Nobody even have you don't even have the classes no more to say this is what diversity and inclusiveness looks like. That's already where she is, starting right there. So in the next, by the time these 20-year-olds become 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds, they are going to change the world back into a place where things matter. Now, how far they take it, 300 years from then, so be it. Or 300 years upward, forward, that's all to the good. I hope they keep giving birth to kids who just want to know, want to know, want to know, want to know. Everybody want to know.
Well, I hope so too. Shoot.
I'm beat your ass. You better stop asking me if I want to know.
'Cause I'm man. One of these
If you
kids
remember
got
all
me
the stuff,
buckle up scared.
stop asking me that.
What her said was some of these kids on the leaving the 5, the little 2 years and 3 year olds, man, I'll be like, whoo.
I'm telling you, with the way they think already, I mean, these newborns, are born with their eyes open, and by the time you're 2 months, they're like, psh. I mean, there's some
What they don't know.
amazing
What
kids
they
out
don't
there,
know.
younger than the
What
age of
they
a
don't
year.
know.
I'm telling you, the world is going to be something else, and people better prepare for it. It's like if they think they're lost with technology, can you imagine
Come
being
on.
lost with technology and young goddamn people?
Come on. Listen, they're gonna be like, what you mean you ain't got no batteries? Plug it up. Where the
Girl,
cord at? You
I
ain't pay your
cannot.
bills. What you
I
mean you ain't pay
cannot.
your bills? I got
Electricity is
$20.
gonna mean every goddamn thing. Swear to God. Electricity is gonna be the
Mhm.
number one everything.
Oh no, they
Everything.
having them. They bringing windmills back and solar. Like
Yeah, because
it's all
because
down south.
it gets electricity from the ground. But that's my point. They can use so much fucking technology and computers. Shit, they're gonna need all the electricity. That's gonna be the
Mhm.
downfall, or like the worst thing coming out of those generations, futuristically speaking. You know what I mean? It's that, we're gonna get the source to power all the shit that you guys have all these big ideas about. So they're gonna have a lot to think about too. Because with the good comes the bad. If you plan on having big ideas about tearing the fucking world up and y'all want to live in a bunch of smog, it makes me know never mind, because I ain't gonna be here 300 fucking years.
No,
Kill
everybody gonna be in the
yourselves
sky like
off
that
with all of
restaurant.
that shit if you want to. Makes me know never mind.
Oh yeah, they're gonna be high up in the sky
Mhm.
with the restaurants and everything else. Then you're gonna have to worry about birds.
Exactly. You don't have to worry about shit. Exactly.
You're gonna have to worry about birds. Angry birds.
Mhm.
Angry birds at that. Angry birds. Right? Birds is man, I didn't know birds was that damn on deadly. Like birds and planes. That's scary. So yeah, we
Mhm.
gotta worry about birds. Birds is deadly. That's why they shoot them off before the air shows. They try to make sure they get rid of all the birds in the area so that when they do them air
Do
shows and
they, Sakina, do they? Oh my gosh. I thought that was just like straight up
no,
rumor. But you have so many
no,
military people in your family. You would,
no. A
yeah.
bird will shut that engine down and them planes will go down like real. That's why they're serious. That's airplanes. That's why airplanes fly that high because they can't afford to get caught up with birds either in their engines and whatnot. that
Okay,
yeah,
I'm
honestly,
I'm about to drop one down. I'll be in the chat. Did y'all see what I put in the back chat for y'all?
I see a message back
Okay,
here.
hold
Yeah,
on. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see.
Yeah,
Don't
that's the
please
article
don't
that
leave.
talks about it.
Yep.
Oh no, I
yes,
ain't. You
appreciate
know,
it.
I'm out. I'm. Don't forget, time goes forward, so it's actually 1 o'clock. I'm done for the night.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you,
Peace.
Marcus.
Thank you
I
so much,
appreciate you so
Marcus.
much. It's always a
Yes,
pleasure to
yes,
have you here because I learned so much. Because if we get a good dialogue back and forth, you really know how to meet a person where they are with your knowledge and information, and I appreciate that.
yes. And I don't know. I think it was you. They said um talking about the wait a minute, it's the chart. What is the it's the um it's the chart with the iron and the all of that. What is it called
The
again?
periodical chart,
Is it yeah, the peer that's it. Say it again, Gemini.
the periodical chart.
Is that you I'm supposed to talk to about?
That's big spaceman Anthony Bowman.
Okay, that's who I need to talk to because right after I said something about it, um, I think it was within that same week somebody had came out. It was y'all on the pseudo killers came out saying a lady made a discovery on the periodical chart. Ain't that something?
Yeah, for Black History Month. Yeah, that was
Right.
hot.
Oh
We
yeah,
was
yeah,
talking.
yeah. She found one of the elements. She found
Yeah.
one of the elements. Sister from Tennessee.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
from
was
Tennessee
talking about I was
University.
talking to Gideon about why don't nobody talk about the periodical chart and we need to talk about that because nobody
You
knows.
should come back. Yeah, Marcus, you should come back.
Right,
Yeah,
and he
talk about
said,
that with
"I
us.
need
Let's
to
create
talk to
a
one of
show.
y'all about it." And soon as the very next day or two, y'all did a show about somebody making a discovery on that same chart, and I said, "See,
Yeah,
that's what I said. We needed to do a lesson on the
that was
periodical
true.
chart
We were just
because
talking about that. Yeah,
nobody does a study on that no more, and we need to hit that topic." As soon as we said that, y'all busted and said that lady. You see what I'm saying?
yeah, that
And
was
so,
true. It did happen in that
yeah,
order.
Yeah.
very much
All
so.
right, so I check y'all later. You know what I'm saying? I'll be in the chat. Y'all go ahead and enjoy y'all show. All right.
Well, we
Okay, for
come and
sure.
thank you so much again, nephew.
Anytime, anytime.
Night,
Thank you. Good night.
Jay. You still hanging?
Jay, once Jay gets some Chinese food in him, it's over. I'm almost gonna call him Oriental
You may
Jay.
not let him hear you say that out loud. Oh my gosh. Don't
It's
do it. Don't do it.
something about that sub
You're
gum.
just trying to create beef too.
Something about that sub gum.
Girl.
Once he
Oh
do that, he
man.
goes straight to Fortnite and then it's on.
You know what? I want Jay to come back because this will be a good
Hmm.
segue into, introducing, people and their specific skill set and what they do.
Yeah,
That's why I was like it when the pseudo killers come over, is because they know what lane they supposed to be in and they stand on that, like
yeah,
all
yeah.
all squares of their lane. And if they don't belong in your lane, they're like, okay, that's not my shit, it's not my jam, I'm out. Real simple. Like,
Oh,
they
Jay
understand,
dry.
what the assignment is, right? So this is a good segue into introducing people who other people who think like that into what it is that they do because it's their lane. So I wish Jay was here so he can kind of introduce the piece of history that he does so well in critical thinking. That was his specialty. When I first met Jay, he used to be like, no, I'm more of a critical thinker than anything, you know. And then come to find out, like, he uses critical thinking with history, which is a good pair, because again, just like this compass, incident, right? Compass gate, um, like we've been duped for 300 and something years. And according to, Marcus, longer than that, because the earth has been fluctuating, with that magnetic field for way longer than 300 years.
Yes, because they've been in
Way
slavery for
longer, way
themselves.
longer.
Let's be real. How
Yeah,
long? That long. Because, the foolery is real. So,
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's almost like
mm,
saying, and why is this important? Well, it's important because there are stories in history where they, have, equated migration of this people and that people being in certain places that they were not, because that compass wasn't real. People have invaded other territories thinking that they were one place and not the other, surprising people like, damn, surprise, we're here at your shores, right? It's because the compass said, hey, this is north, has to be true north.
right,
You know what I mean? So it's like, what the hell? We're not prepared for no damn war because we didn't even know y'all ass was pulling up like that. How about that?
right,
Can we get 30 minutes to get our shit together?
right.
And
This
so
ain't gonna
history, yeah,
cover.
it's important. Yeah, like this compass issue is like real fucking
Yeah,
important as it
all
pertains to
of it
history.
is. You see what I'm saying? All of it
It's
is
crazy as
compass.
hell.
That's what it is, a compass. Come past me with that. No, pass me up. Pass me not. Pass on by. Pass on. You know what I'm saying? It's look here.
Yeah, it's wild to me. I'm just like so blown away, behind that shit because they have done a lot of shit in 300 years, 360 years, let alone all the times that the shit was wrong before that. The ocean was all they had at one point. So then it's important again. Why is this important? Because the ocean was the only way of that was the largest transportation, way by way of transportation was the ocean. People use fucking ships to get to and fro.
No, they
Before
had Pat
all
and
this.
Turner.
So
They
where the
had
fuck
Pat
were
and
they
Turner.
going? I just want to know where were they going all the time? Again, invading people shit unnecessarily, pulling up on people, surprising people like, we came here to find a new land and we found y'all. What?
Listen, they walked it like they talked it too now.
Yeah, because because if you okay, so according to history, the Han Dynasty was the first people to use it. But I also know of, when I look at, different people's background, the Vikings, not necessarily everybody else who was in early Europe or wherever, the Vikings found a way to use the compass as well. And they were some, ignorant ass, aggressive ass people, right? So it's
Yeah,
like,
they with their hands.
yeah, and because they were aggressive, didn't mean they were dumb necessarily, because that's why they set out in the first place. Yeah, nobody going to even just take that risk if they didn't mean business, but where they thought they were going and and ended up. And in
They
300
were
years,
scavengers
again,
though.
we're not
So
talking about the
ain't no
Vikings in
telling.
300 years. But let me clarify, we're not talking about the Vikings in 300 years. We're talking about way back.
Come
If
on
the
up, my
magnetic
kings.
field,
I'm
has
just
been
gonna wonder.
fluctuating the earth, yeah, you're not getting a true reading on anything that has to do in anything in that category. You've been getting a false reading on for 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 thousands of years, let alone hundreds. That's real
So
messed up.
who you think who do you think? Who do you think the Vikings were? The Scandinavians?
Well, that's what I know them to be per history. I don't know about anything else.
So
All I know,
they name
all
these
I know for
people
sure about
anything.
Europe is that just because they looked alike does not mean they got along. No, they were all fighting for, certain territories as they saw important, and fought each other, and was for sure that we are not you. I am
Okay,
not you.
well, again, what did the Scandinavians look like? Because according to them people that was on that picture on that slave ship, who were the Santa Claus? These people had on the Santa
No, he
Claus.
was German, not Scandinavian. Santa Claus is German. Claus is even a German name.
You think them people were German that were
They
holding?
were yeah, they were German, not Scandinavian.
So you think Germans had a part in slavery?
I don't know.
I
That's a good
don't think
question.
so.
I don't know. I don't know. But it would be impossible to think that the Scandinavians did. That would be because they were, they were so, aggressive. They were enslaving their own all day long. So I can't exactly say that those group of people, you know, really cared about skin color or anything like that. I couldn't imagine attaching that with them. Now maybe some other Europeans, but not those Europeans. For me, I would, it's a personal opinion.
But I wouldn't think Germans would have been classified at that particular time during that era to be considered Europeans. And according to those hats that those people wore during that segment, you see what I'm saying? We going with the hats. So
Yeah.
according to those hats,
Now you sound like the ones. What do you always say?
right?
They kind of sketchy.
Hey,
Everybody
Dickens,
with a
hold
hat.
up. So according to those caps on those people that were
Yeah, they were
maintaining
sketchy.
those slaves, and the way that those slaves were in chains and stuff, they just got off that ship, right? So these people were pale and they had on Christmas hats. So I don't know what kind of hats we're gonna call them at that
Then they
particular
were
time.
German. They were German.
So
Yes.
Germans were
Yeah, because
Germans
don't forget the Germans
slave
are the ones who
holders,
also enslaved the Jews.
but we
Right? It was the
not
Jews against
Jews.
it was the Jews against the Germans. Remember
So
that?
we were Jews back then.
No,
We
but
were
we if
considered
if
Jews.
we had a side, we wouldn't be the Germans for sure. If we could
Okay,
pick a side,
Deacon said Vikings and Norse seafarers mainly were present in Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, who lived during the
yeah, there you go.
Vikings,
The Vikings,
approximately
yes.
from the 8th
That's all of
century,
them.
early 11th century. Okay, that would speak for the Vikings and whatnot, but the Vikings and Sweden's, yeah, would they hold um would they hold um Africans and would they be part of the slave trade? Because to our knowledge up to this point, I'm gonna say mines. I ain't gonna say ours. I'm gonna say mines. The Spaniards and the um, um, Europeans were slave traders, and Vikings were not, according to the history, had nothing to do with that. So
Right, because they were everybody's slave. Shit, they
right,
don't you know, they were into, women being in captivity. They were into I mean, they were aggressive, right? They were an aggressive bunch, right? Because their conditions made them aggressive, right? If I'm not exactly how sure historical truth is to the truth, that they put in front of us, but these people growing up in this um volatile weather volatile weather conditions, whether it's summer or winter or spring, all of it is volatile. And so, it makes the people, it makes for a volatile type of people. So they were like, we're going to enslave everybody. From what I know about Viking history, Norsemen, they're their own people for sure. They don't care nothing about what you look like. You could be as white as them, same hair color as them. If they know you are not them, it's a problem.
Okay, the jarls, nobles, carls, freedmen, and peasants, right? And I don't get all this wonderful shit he's talking about. The thralls, the slaves in the society were largely argalias or aguilars, and a strong emphasis on farming. Now, was that in America? Are we speaking on right? Because we do know about I know about some freemen and peasants and nobles, but some of these nobles and peasants and whatnot were not in America, right? So okay, so
Well, not
right,
using that language, noble. Yeah, they
right.
couldn't be in America.
All right, DQ, let me drop this link again because some of this stuff you referring to I get, but some of this stuff didn't happen over here. So um
Yeah, yeah, we know it didn't happen over here, but we're saying how we got to the whole, Viking situation is we were talking about those compasses. And I said the only other people I know that used compasses really early were like the Vikings. That's how that
right,
got into.
and I
Yeah,
appreciate
and
that, but when we talk about the
that
Vikings
was
and
it.
whatnot in the
And I
compass,
said that, and I said, and I was saying because they were an aggressive bunch of people, group of people, that if this compass, has been wrong for this long due to the many fluctuations, right, in the earth from this magnetic field. Can you imagine people like them pulling up on you? Like, oh my gosh, thinking that they're going one way and going another way, pulling up on people like, hey, we're
so
going to
you
get
think they
busy. All
snatched
this
up
is
a few of
ours.
them and made them? Do you honestly think they snatched up a few of these Vikings and made them be slave traders and herders and
Well, no, they were not slave traders. They just believed in prisoners of war, really tough, right? So it wasn't that, because to again, they were the kind of people, they were the kind of Europeans, to enslave every damn body equally. If you was their enemy, you was their enemy. Skin color didn't matter to them, to that bunch of people. But there were lots of other people, right? There's British, the Scottish, there are people from Denmark. All those people were, conquered so that they can make way for this, great society that push fast forward is today. So, that's how that came along
I don't think the
in
Brit.
history.
I'm gonna have to read some book. Because I don't think the Brits got along with people like that, especially not at that time. Everybody was
They
out for
didn't get along with
them.
them. That's what I'm
Exactly. So
saying. They
I
weren't gonna
think
get along with you. Fuck them not getting along with you.
yeah, so I don't
The
think
people.
the Brits took in another pale face, let alone, do you know what I'm saying, trying to negotiate um uh with another, you know what I'm saying? Especially no, not because they the ones that came up with poor white trash. So we didn't do that, they did. So I don't think that they did Scandinavians and all these other names you name them. We didn't do that, they did. So when you say this to say that, I don't think that um they allowed that trade to happen. Like this just me saying that because when you
No,
say
no, but
you're
okay. So wait, so that
I
would be like push
the
push fast
European,
forward, right? Push fast forward into the trade, right? So
right?
for whatever reasons, right now we always go back and forth with this piece of history because people really are not telling the truth about it. But from what I know about history, right? When the Europeans wanted to sell the seven seas in a real type of way, they went and got a Moor, right? The Moors that were the coastal people, right? That knew how to navigate them seven seas like nobody's business, right? So when they were looking for when looking for African people, they found them. They found them with accuracy, but because they had certain navigators with them who's like, I don't need this compass to figure out where I'm going. I'm born and bred of this sea. That's a different type of person altogether, right? But when it came to other stuff like what we're talking about, 320 years ago, if we can keep it, in the present, that's a lot of damn nerve. Let alone when Marcus came and explained that, right? There's all of these fluctuations that occur naturally within that magnetic field all of the time. They never knew. That compass never worked. Hey DQ, how you doing?
Hey,
What's
the
poppin', y'all?
cute.
What's good? What's good? Y'all doing all right?
We doing
Yes.
okay.
Already.
Okay, yes, I need you to break this down because listen, I read it, but
Got another pseudo killer on deck.
I read it, but listen, because my thing was, did you hear what I said about the Santa Claus hat? Listen, because the Santa Claus hat on these slave people, did, these people okay, so if they were whatever they was, because they were not European. Let's say that they were
They were
not European.
German. They were
Okay, even
German.
if they were German, we know that German were not European. Okay, Germans were not considered European during
Why
slavery.
they wasn't, Sakina? You don't have to explain that one. You
No,
have to
we're gonna
source up on
explain
that
that
one,
one.
boo.
We explaining it
Look at
because
DQ looking
during
at it.
that time, we finna explain it. During that time, we know that Romans conquered Egypt. We know that England was the enforcer of England was the enforcer with the king and the queen, and we also know they were the rulers, and that we know that Britain was the enforcer, and this was the power of the land, right? There was nobody else that really had say-sos at this point, right? Biblically, historically, Germans,
What time
Germans,
period we talking about,
we
Sakine?
talking about anywhere from 1200 to 1500. Even we can go all the way up to the 2500, right? Because all of this engulfed the major
1200
points.
to 1500.
Yeah, because uh, Germans and Turkish and all of this other stuff. These people were called all kind of little stuff. They could have been scat. We don't even know, because let them tell it. The barbarians and the Scandinavians and all these people might have been.
Okay, so where you gonna put Germany at if not in Europe, Sakina? Where? Where? Where?
Hey,
Because
Sakine,
these,
Yeah,
I was
again.
gonna
where you
tell you
gonna,
one
where
thing,
you gonna put
Sakine.
these
Your
people?
timing was wrong. Your chronological order was wrong. I'm gonna drop this source for you because
Okay, because I'm just saying, when we talk about barbarians and Scandinavians and all
They
these
are not
other
even in the same. They're not even.
they don't.
Europe is very
Okay, but
big.
I'm just listen here. When I listen where I'm going with this, when we get to talking biblically and historically, I've only heard about Turkish, right? I've never heard of a name what they called uh Germans. What they call them, the
How
Germans?
you never heard of German when
What
Germany
did they call them?
is the capital of Europe and always have been
But what did they
since
call them?
nothing else since 962 AD.
Nine six.
AD.
What did they call them back then? When they was calling
Sakina,
everybody Shemites and Hemites and Kemites and Darites and the Bizites, what did they call them Germans?
you know
no,
what? Let me ask Chat GPT.
I'm
Shit.
already in it. I'm looking at
Okay,
it
what
right
it
now.
say? What it say?
I've just put it up. Pre-Roman times, the earliest accounts of Germanic people come from the Roman source, with Germanic tribes being recognized as distinct from the Celts, who inhabited much of Europe. These Germanic tribes, primarily agrarian, with social structures can emphasize kinship and warrior culture. Then there's Roman encounters where he fought his conquest of Gaul in the first century, where he came in contact with Germanic tribes. You also have migration patterns from the fourth and sixth century. Yeah, they've been around. They've
They've
been
been
What
around.
was
around,
they called?
Sakina. I don't know where you.
Wait,
I
what
don't know
was they
which
called?
history has taught you
What
about
was they called?
German
What was that?
people.
What was that,
Yeah,
Queen?
the only people that fought them was the Romans at this point. So the Romans only knew about them.
No,
And the Romans,
The Romans encountered them. Like I say, pre-Roman times, there's
oh,
already there's accounts of Germanic people. who recognize themselves distinct from Celts. If you go into the history of, I just don't want to say white people, but of that region, of the Western Eurasian region, you'll understand the history of the Celts, the Goths, all these different type tribes, the Franks, the Anglos, the Saxons. All these are different type groups who fought against each other. Like it's a very in-depth history. Us being in the diagram that we look at it from us being Black Americans, we just think all whites are conjoined, and the British white people are one unified people. They're a whole amalgamation and collection of different tribes, just like us.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So, did what part of German played in slavery?
What you mean by slavery? Which slave trade? You talking about transatlantic? Or we talking about Saharan? Or are we talking about
We can go with
slave trade we talking about?
transatlantic. We can go with transatlantic.
The transatlantic slave trade, the Germans had something financially to do with something dealing with that. I don't want to say probably like hands-on physical. I don't know anything of that sort, but I know financially they had some backing to do with it.
Okay, well, no, according to this picture, that's all I was going with. Was we
What
seen
picture are you talking about?
men-
Drop that picture in the back. Let me look at
Wait
that.
a minute, I'm gonna
Let me see what picture we doing some lookership tonight. What we talking about? What we on?
hold on a minute. Let me.
That's because you know what, Sakina played real good devil's advocate, and she would take you there, but it would also still too make you kind of think like, okay, well, shit, maybe that's a valid point. You know what I mean? All in the same breath.
Ain't nothing never wrong with it. I always tell people you have to expand your mind both ways. Go as far
Both
left
ways.
you can and go as far right, and make sure you find a balance throughout your life. So yeah, it's all good.
Facts. Okay, who's sharing the screen?
I'm not yet. I'm finna pull this slide out right fast, and then I'm gonna share my screen as soon as I find it.
I'll drop that picture, a couple of these programs, see if I can see what we can do. Yeah. Y'all doing good tonight?
Just when I said I was gonna be up all night with y'all. Like this is the straight juice.
Ready.
All right, let's see. Damn, I want to do a slideshow. How blow this up, Jim? Let me do it like this.
Is that the African American Museum?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that too big? Yeah, that's too big. Let me see.
I can actually find that exact picture now, since I know it's African American Museum that we're looking at.
Oh, that's awful. I really overdid that. Yeah, if you can pull it up better, I appreciate it.
I got you.
All right, great. Let me come out of there.
So we should be able to share a screen now, right?
No, I came out of share screen. All right. Let me all right.
There's no camera in it.
You should be able to share your screen.
Oh, you want me to share? Okay, hold on. You good? You could have kept sharing yours. I was about to try to put it through some scrutiny. I gotta just find the exact area of the museum that you were showing. Because I seemed like I seen that picture before. Seemed like it was slaves attached to a I forgot the name of that. the name of that stick, the particular mechanism it's called. You know, keep everybody walking.
Mhm.
Straight
And
line. But yeah,
the guys got the red caps on. The two guys that got the red caps on, they kind of pale.
they got some
And
hats
they
on.
didn't look like
So
Europeans to me. Yeah, with the
so
red
that's
caps
the
on, look like
yeah,
Santa
put the hat,
hats.
put it back there. Girl, you keep saying Christmas hats. I was wondering why you kept saying this.
Right,
I
but
got
because that's what it looked like to me. They got on Santa Claus hats. I'm like, well, wait a minute, what's going on here
with
with
a
a hope?
proper the proper way we can do it is we can pull up the exact picture. We can see what is documented or who was the illustrator of it and see what they was describing. We can figure out which you can say country had that particular color or used that particular type apparel, you know, when they was doing their military drills or was they doing whatever. So it's a way we can find research to figure out who this was, you know. Most definitely there's empirical evidence with it. So yeah, I just gotta get that picture.
Okay, because that
Now, the reason why, Sakina brought up earlier, she was like, well, the claws and that red and white hat, but claws is a German name. That is German. That is German when you see that red and white. That's where it originated. That's the Claus. The original Santa Claus is a fully German name, 100%.
Yeah. I think we're going down the wrong rabbit hole just by applying the whole Christmas thing to
this I'm overdoing it.
it.
Putting
Ho
all
ho
kind of
ho!
dubs on it.
Here, DQ. What you not gonna do is take Christmas out of my doggone stage show. I said it was
Man.
Santa, damn it.
March 17th hasn't come up yet. We'll just put motherfucking leprechaun. We'll just replace that word with leprechaun or some shit like that.
Right. I
St.
said
Patrick.
it was Santa Claus on there, damn it.
How funny. Oh man.
You not finna tell me Santa didn't make him some
We'll replace that
slaves.
shit. We'll replace it. We'll replace it with something else.
Oh, that's silly.
He said, what you ain't finna do now. Okay, wait a minute. I'm finding it the long way, so I don't have to pull up this whole slideshow.
DQ, what took you so long to sit here and tell your auntie? Jay couldn't get her to behave. Marcus couldn't get her to behave. It took you to get your auntie to behave.
Because she know I'm coming in with all love. I'm trying to actually catch everything. You know, I ain't trying to dagger nobody. I'm chilling. I'm chilling. I just bring in my resources.
Now you got your auntie behaving at the cookout. Thank you. Thank you.
Listen here. You finna see these. You finna see these jingle bells on these people, and he finna be happy and say, "Okay, well, now it is what it is." Okay, look, I done found it. We's about Weezy's
That's some
about.
funny stuff. You know what, Sakina? I don't know why I always, you know what, y'all, I got a habit of letting Sakina take me down all kinds of rabbit holes.
Listen here. Ain't nothing wrong with a bunny.
We never even listen, we never even get close to a conclusion or a solution until
now
Friday, Saturday. When
Nephew,
y'all come
listen.
on, or when other people come on.
Okay. Let me see.
All right, you see these people right here with these Santa Claus hats on, with these big sticks.
Can you zoom into the words?
Their face. I want to see their face. What is their face looking like? Their phenotype.
I'm trying to see the words. Y'all can't get nothing with
we can barely see the words.
Now, she call them Santa Claus hats, but they look like turbans.
You see words, but you see the face, and they got on.
Let me type in their name right there.
It got on skirt dresses and
A lot of
petticoat
it's not
drawers.
skirt dresses. That's the way people could be freer,
Okay, well that's
and
what they
air
got
out
on right
more.
now.
Oh, y'all are
And
funny, boy. Y'all got me crying. OTTO
It could be less
BAH.
restricted if they
they
had
got
on
on
skirt
petticoat
dresses.
drawers and skirt dresses and Santa Claus hats.
Those are turbans, and that is, and they're Turkish, more
Mm.
than likely, and and that is not a skirt dress.
Oh, okay. That's that's Equiano.
Oh,
Oto by Equiano. Okay, so
yeah,
that's what that is. All right, now time out. Now we about to get somewhere because that's yeah, that might not be nothing we talking about, y'all.
okay,
I ain't gonna cap to you. Because
Okay.
I pulled up the name that you can see right there. Well, you had it on there. It was it had OTTOBAH on there.
yeah, I
Mm.
And
did.
yeah, and I pulled it up. That's Equiano. I learned about Equiano through listening to Garfield. Um,
Yeah,
Equiano was abolish uh,
yeah,
abolitionist and a political activist. Let me pull up that exact picture now.
because some of the things they were saying about Equianos is like his age, like how old, like they were questioning his age, questioning, things that he, remembered in his memoir.
Yeah,
I
most
don't know who
definitely.
that was.
There was some issues and different discrepancies with certain things about him, but the overall preface of what he did is pretty dope.
Yeah, yeah, we could say we all feel like he was being truthful.
Hmm. Okay, we on the Equiano list. Well, one thing I can say that had nothing to do with America if we were dealing with Equiano, because that would be, everything he did was over there in Britain.
Mm.
Yep, 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 yep. Yeah, thoughts and sentiment on the evil and wicked traffic of slavery, commerce, and the human species by Equiano. That was the book he wrote.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I've read that book
So,
halfway and then listened to the rest of it from everybody else.
uh-huh. It sound like a plan. Yeah. I'm trying to see if I can find that exact picture now. Did you go to
Mm.
the museum, Sakina?
No, my daughter went, and so I took all her pictures and whatnot, and I put together a slideshow, and that's what I presented, and we all went through it. And
Yeah, it was really good too. It was nice. It was super duper nice.
That's
So
dope.
wait though, okay. So if
yeah,
we're talking
we
about Equianos at that time, we would have to, as it pertains to slavery, there were people going in and out of those coastal, plains where he was.
Correct.
So it could have been some anybody. It could have been some anybody who had probably a license to go and capture slaves at that time.
I can totally like I say, that's definitely a possibility.
see. Jabari and I'm going in April, but I'm going in May.
Mm.
Right, but we supposed to be having our annual, our um uh graduation celebration reunion in June. So I don't know now because I want to go there at the Chicago Museum. So now I got a choice. Like dun 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 dun.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Sakina, for me, I'm going to tell you just like it is, right? I really think you should go with, if you could have, it would have been really nice to go with Jabari and him. He's your mentor, a
Yeah,
person
they
that,
going in April.
yeah.
Yeah, they going in
So,
April. But I want to go. I go when I go to Wisconsin with my son, and I always go for a month. And my daughter and
yeah,
I'm
but
going
you
a
could,
week.
but to be honest, like with your son, you have some other times to, be, how often are you going to see Jabari? Catch him at especially at the museum.
But not just that. I'm going with Shimshu Haru, which is my whole class, my whole initiate class. And that's
Mm,
gonna be at the museum. So Jabari might be there for that, and that's gonna be at the Chicago Museum, right? And so we're all gonna meet there in June. So just to go there in itself, I to go to the Washington Museum is just with the girls again, and go with them versus going with Jabari and them in April. That's one thing, but to go with the girls in June, well, that was gonna go for my birthday, but now it's like to go to Milwaukee for my birthday and then go with them in June. That's my choice now. So
yeah.
it's like, somebody, right? Because my brother and them there, my sister there, my kids there, my nieces there. It's like it's a bit awful, but I don't want to tell my girls, but
Well, again, yeah, you're gonna have to weigh that against the Mayat scales, right?
that's why it's gonna be a but they're gonna be like, well, mom, go ahead, they are gonna right because I want to go to the Chicago Museum too. That's like the big, this is
I mean, trips like that is fun, not just because you get a chance to meet people who you've only talked to online, but just because it too, it gets you going somewhere, and then collectively, that energy, whether you want to, deal with people or not, um, even after you meet them, like it's like for some of us, it's like it's a I'm I'm glad to have met you, but that's as far as it go. You know, it's still fun to go on trips like that because that collective energy, when all of us we're there for the same reason to go and learn information and gather, and get more knowledge. It's a real type of energy.
right, and the museum it's not as big. I don't know. I've never been, but I believe that the Chicago Museum is more like the New York Museum, probably maybe a smaller, whatever. According to like a Kemet Museum, but it's not like the one in New York. I mean, not New York, but the one in Washington, because Washington is a heritage for like
Yeah,
our American Heritage Museum, versus this is going to be more like a Kemet, Africa, that kind of museum. So I've never been to neither. Right, I've been to a historical museum, but not even that has that much historic in it as the one I just seen. Right, from
right,
their
right.
eye, from those photos. I've seen some stuff, but not as much, right? So, and these are the kind of things, even with the kids, like we just take those kind of historical trips, historical rides, and, that kind of stuff, just appreciating life and the nature and the buildings and these kind of things itself. But this is a little more deeper.
Yeah,
She's like,
yeah,
Mom, you could have been there because you could have told the history of this and that because we didn't even know that this, we didn't know that this, we didn't know that this. You know what I'm saying? Again,
right,
because
right.
so, yeah, it's like that's why I'm going. But now with this other thing that popped up, it's like, well, the choices.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, you just, if hanging out with the girls is equally or more as important than going with, your mentor, then that's the choice that you make. But it has to be along those guidelines. Like you have to give it some sort of, you know, um, criteria. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So equally or more important. If you get that feeling about either or, then that's the deciding factor.
right. So that's what I'm looking at because it's like right. Then I got my family in Chicago. I ain't seen in a minute since COVID too. So it's like maybe,
Right.
especially when I'm up here
Right.
in Rocky Mountain High, like Rocky Mountain High.
And it's always so much fun with family. Goodness, man. I couldn't even imagine hanging out with anybody other than family. Everything
Right.
I do, good or bad, is with family. Everything, everything.
No, like everything. Like, listen. And when you just like really though, that's like just everything. You can have one or two friends, three, four, five friends, six, seven. But really though, it's just always family.
It's always family,
Always,
always.
and the friends you do have is family too. And even then, the universe give me a lot of family.
They're an extended family, but I love to hear the stories of people who are like, I have, six sisters, I have five sisters. What? That kind of thing. And I'm always like, it is so much fun to have sisters. And they're like, yep, it really is. Like, I swear to God, if you don't have any sisters, it's like, or like a lot of sisters, man, you are totally missing out. It is such a trip.
Marquise, he said Saint Nicholas was a Moor. Saint Nicholas was black. That just made him a Moor because he
Oh
was
my
black.
gosh. Ain't nobody named
Don't blame me
Saint
though.
nothing was black.
Saint Nicholas was black. Saint Nicholas was black.
His name wasn't Saint Nicholas. Bet you that.
His
Bet you
name
his name
was.
wasn't Saint nothing.
Look, Nicholas was black. That's why it was 5 days after December 5th, and that
Oh
black
my
man was
gosh.
giving a little gift out, and
Share
that's
your
why I
screen and show that. Show that. Show that.
here.
Source that.
Marcus, come on up here, and Marquise, come on up here and show her
You
that
just
Saint
no,
Nicholas
you just want
was
to
a
make
Moor.
Germans, you
No,
want to make
this not
Germans
German. This
something
man was
that
black. Saint
lame.
Nicholas was a black man, and I celebrated
His
Saint
name
Nick.
wasn't Saint nothing when he was a black man, guarantee
Here,
you.
that man might have believed in something, and
Ain't
he was
nobody named
Christian, and he
Saint
was
nothing
baptized,
black.
so he was a saint. He was a saint. When the saints come knocking it,
Ain't nobody with no Saint, with no SP.
woo, you want to be in that
Until the current years. Shit, with nobody
number?
way back when named Saint nothing.
Listen here. What's that man name? Uh,
Who?
Saint
Ghost on Power?
uh, Lucifer, Saint Lucifer. If he can be a saint, anybody
And
can be a
Saint
saint.
James?
That's right, Saint James. And there wasn't no J in the Bible when he was around. Wasn't no J in the Bible when Joseph was around. Jehoshaphat, Josephus, Josiris. Wasn't no J's in wasn't
Josiah.
no right. Wasn't no J's around when none of them was around. But yet they just said they only pointed out Jesus. So what is we saying? They said, wasn't no J around for Jesus, wasn't no J around for Joseph, Josiah, Jehoshaphat, none of them other J's. So
Josephus.
what is we saying there? Right?
Oh
So
man.
we just point out Jesus, because really though, didn't nobody know nothing about it till Mel Gibson came out with that movie, and that movie was in we don't even
Hey,
know
that
the
movie
language.
was hard though.
That movie, once that movie
That movie
came out,
was
they said,
good.
"Yep, that is how you say Yahshua name." And after that, everybody changed that man's name. His name was Joshua. After that, they said, "Yep, that's how you say his name. That is how you say his name." But before that movie came out, in the name of Jesus. And after that movie came out, that is his name. We heard Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Shannon. We heard all them names.
Okay, listen though. Listen to what you're saying, right? Which makes it like such a weird type of thing, because Mel Gibson was like, I am not Christian, I do not believe in God. And when I made this movie, something, I was just a regular, hey, something just said, hey, make this movie. Okay, so I made this movie. And so, well, after you make the movie, you still believe it, have you converted? Are you how do you feel about this? He's like, still not 100% convinced, but then in the same breath, this movie meant everything to Christians. How? I am
Mel Gibson talking about stuff people don't want to talk about.
Play the role of a saint, and it'd be a beloved movie. You see what I'm saying? But when overplayed, beloved, okay, it was a problem. It's what are we saying? I just have a hard time with that. Like,
he talked about her.
Yeah, that movie was everything to them, right? To the Christians. It was Mel Gibson was everything.
Mel Gibson was what's the name of that movie? Him and Danny Glover.
Oh yeah. Golly, what is that movie?
Well, he was crazy. He was crazy. What's the name of that movie? Lethal Weapon.
Lethal Weapon. 1, 2, 3, 4,
Mel
5,
Gibson was
6, and
Lethal Weapon.
7.
Yes, but when he did a movie called Freedom, right?
Oh yeah.
And
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
yeah, he talk about stuff people don't want to talk about. They
See,
tried to
that's I wish
ban that
Jay was
movie.
back. Yeah, I wish Jay was back because he really
Yeah,
could
he
expound
talked
on
about
some
stuff
of
they
that.
don't want to talk about, and so like I said, that and then that's when they came out and said he had many a names, but I don't know about that part. Oh,
Well, Nepal said all those many a names or many a, many a gods, many a angels. Shit, the many, many, many,
yeah,
many,
but that
many.
wasn't for the son. I thought that was for the father. And
Yeah,
now
but
I've heard,
still, if they have if they're two different people and two different names, it falls then into an esoteric lane real easily.
yeah, but then the son became the father, which that's when it got confusing because the son became the father, and you can't become my father if you're my son.
Yeah, that
My
part.
brother is
I
not,
mean, okay, as a father, okay, but maybe they don't mean it literally, right? Father figure, father head, that type of thing, because it is true. The son will grow up to replace his father, right? So he won't be the
who?
father, but he will be in the acting role
The
as the
father.
patriarchal person in the home.
To who?
To what do you mean to who? To most people who
I mean, I'm just
who
saying,
have
so he
sons.
was a father role to the other siblings?
A father role, period. Yes, yes, to the other siblings. That's what the father was doing, right? He was taking care of the
But the
siblings.
father was still there. So are we saying that
Once
he
he's
was
old, if I'm fully grown, that means you're fully old. I mean, like seriously, this is not like today's time where my children are fully. They're not. Well, yeah, I guess yeah. The ones in their 30s, yeah, they're fully grown, but I'm not fully old, right? But once upon a time, right, and especially in that time, right, when you were fully grown, your parents were fully old. So what could they do for you? Not a daggone thing except fall in line. Mom, dad, you know, I know it's gonna take y'all 2 extra hours to sit here and get that water from the water hole to the house. So I'm gonna
and I
wake
understand
y'all up
that, but you
extra
don't
early to get it done.
we get that part, but you don't just because you take care of your mother don't mean that you became your mother.
Yeah, it does. Because if your mother and father cannot physically get up and do the things that they used to, which is go to work at least a 40-hour, 30 to 40-hour work week, consistently pay all of the bills, keep everybody under one roof, right? Without the electricity or the other bills in between, get in between, and food on the table and clothes on the back. Yeah. If he cannot do any of those things, then guess what? He is demoted.
To
And the
being
son,
what?
and
Mother?
the son, yes, and the son becomes the father, but takes over the role as the as the father. And then he takes care of his father on top of that. Takes care of his son and his father. So he's the middleman.
Okay, so in this aspect, are we saying that Jesus took over the role of being God's father, God's son, and became his father? Or, no, not that way. He took over the role of being the son of the father and became your father, although God still existed. According to the Bible, God was no longer your father because Jesus became your father. This is what we saying.
No, we're not even saying any of that as it pertains to Jesus, because Jesus is one of the Holy Spirit, not a father. So I don't know
Well,
what he would
that's
be,
what it
right?
referred to. That's
I don't
what I'm
know. I don't
saying.
know. Yeah, but what I'm saying is this, Jesus's lineage, officially stops when he has no physical father. So, they can try to maybe spin that to say, okay, he is God's father because he was born of the Holy Ghost. And, the way that they sometimes want to spin Jesus is that, God needed to feel, and so he was Jesus, incarnate, feeling the pain and suffering and sorrow for the world, so that he can connect to mankind, so that he can have a closer connection to his creation, right? That's one way they spin it, but again, he has no physical father, right? According to the Bible, Mary was impregnated supernaturally. So we're
Okay,
not even
because
talking about a
right.
father when we're talking
That's
about
what they was
Jesus.
talking about today earlier. But my whole question is that how in one brother, and I heard I'm not gonna call out the pastor name, but I heard him say that Jesus was the Father and not the. Now we know that it's been said that he's the Son, and so now all of a sudden you're referring to him as the Father. So how is the Son now the Father? Do you see what I'm saying? If it's the
Right, because again, right, because well, even on a secondary level, right, it doesn't make sense, practical sense, because now we're talking about spiritual beings, right? With neither death, no, they're immortal, right? So then, how are we talking about a spirit has a father? I don't understand that. So there's several things wrong with that story. Period. Right. The very fact that he doesn't even have a physical father. He has a spiritual father, according to the Bible, but not a physical father. Joseph is his adopted father,
No,
right?
we're not talking about him being Joseph.
So,
He's saying that he telling the congregation that Jesus is their father and
right.
no
So, right. And that's what I'm saying, right? So, I'm leading up to that. So, I'm saying, like,
okay.
the second thing that doesn't make sense is that, we're talking about, Jesus is God's father, yet we can, if we hypothetically, let's just say hypothetically speaking, we can verify Jesus because there was an actual man hanging on the cross versus this man saying, I'm praying to my invisible father. We can't verify that. We don't know that to be true. You see what I'm saying? So now you got a physical man and a spiritual father. That didn't make sense either for a story. So they've spin, you can spin it any way you want, but no matter what direction you spin it, it's still not making much sense. We can't verify anything invisible. If it's invisible, how are we quantifying that? We don't know he was talking to God himself. We don't know that.
If he had two rocks, he was. He had a black rock and a white rock, he was. That's Thurman and Ersey. He was talking. If he had them two rocks, guaranteed. According to the Bible, he had a white rock and a black rock. Anybody with a white rock and a black rock, they heard. Ask
Because according to the Bible, there's so many things that mean so many things, right? You take like with the Holy Spirit of fire, then the Holy Spirit of, the fires meaning
water,
all different types of things, right? Some of the fires, some Christians would
water.
say, those, came from different gods. That's why this fire was that way and that fire was that way. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just too many anomalies, too many what
Interpretation.
ifs, could ifs,
Interpretation. I
too
think
many
we just need
interpretations.
to be in being in existence and knowing that, and we need to go with that because I don't really believe that. Well, I'm not gonna go with I believe because it is what it is. I think we just need to just be knowing in existence and be growing in some realness at this point because all these truths, too many lies have been told.
Too many lies, right? And we
Too many
started this
lies have been
conversation
told.
So war ended on lies, right? And we started out on lies with this compass, right? That's how we started down this entire road. That compass was a lie. Your direction was a lie. People you went and plundered was a lie for a lot of years.
No.
And that's the whole, that's where, I'm still stuck. I can get past that. Like, wait, what? Because,
Right.
again, that compass, people went relied on that compass for so many things, and their mindset was so antiquated, at
Right.
that time. It wasn't like, hey, I saw you, I'm an aggressive group of people, and I see you, and I don't attack you. No, first thing come to mind is plunder, right? Plunder means the gold, the money, the gold coins, and the jewelry, fine gems, and anything else that I thought was, of use that I could barter and
Right.
trade later on or become wealthy with.
Right.
You know, that's all their mind, pretty much was fixated on, at that time. So you're saying that, just on a natural tip, you know, this compass could have been wrong way longer, much,
Come
much,
on.
much, much.
And then they say by now it's, oh, it was allegorical and it was not literal. The allegorical line was not literal because you see what I'm saying? Because of the imaginary
And when
line.
you say slavery, it's a misnomer.
Right, because here we go, because of the declination of the line and the mystery line, because of the fake line made out of water, and we poured more water on one side, and it was supposed to make the line unbalanced because the line wasn't really there, and it drew the line across the hemisphere, and that's what made it right, because water in the sky,
They
you
drew it
can't
against the
tell.
map. They didn't necessarily draw it against the hemisphere. They just,
No,
you
it was
know,
an imaginary line, but the
yeah,
imaginary
but
line is
they
always,
didn't draw it there. That's just where
they
they,
didn't
when
draw it
they
at all, but you cannot tell.
you call it the imaginary line because it's not a real line.
Exactly. That's
There's
why they
nothing
call
because
it
it's a
imaginary.
natural. It's some things when you get to the end of it, it's a natural phenomenon. That's when you see the
Exactly.
physical
That's why I'm
change in
saying
it.
it, because if you don't, it's the same thing like when you're driving down the street and you see the mirage, and or even we call them whiteouts and all kind of stuff, because you cannot tell the sun from the you can't tell the sky from the
Up
water,
from
or
down, yeah.
exactly. And so that's why they called it the continental, whatever they've called it, because it's imaginary, because you can't tell one, and that's why they
No,
made that.
but no, more than that, Sakina. You can't. That's too surface. The way you're
But
explaining
at
it
that
is
time when
too
they thought
surface.
it what
No,
it
if
was,
you
that's
see
why.
something
Because that
changing,
line came up
no,
with
understand
Pangea.
this though. When they got to the end of where one thing stops and another thing begins, and you find that in natural time, real time, that's some shit. That's not like nothing lightweight where you say, well, they just,
No,
called it this to be called that. No, this is a natural phenomenon happening. They're saying, okay, here is where, and then they follow that phenomenon as long as it can, as far a distance as they can go before they see another type of change, and then draw that out as something else. So they're
when
saying this is where
when the north and the south,
all of this,
when the
this is
two
where all
ends
of
meet,
north ends,
exactly.
and
When the
here's where
middle
south
meets
begins.
together, that is your imaginary line.
Oh my gosh.
That is what I'm trying to tell you. That is where the equator meets the
Yeah,
imaginary
we
line.
know that. But what you're saying is
Exactly.
as imaginary, it again, I'm saying that the reason why I can't take that lightly is
I
because when you
don't take
see
it
something like
lightly.
that in real time, that is a discovery, right? That's not like,
Well, not,
oh,
it's only a discovery for
it's
those
not,
who
it's
see it,
different from
or
like
those who don't know
trout,
it,
at
because
a certain time of the year,
no,
swimming upstream.
no.
That is a phenomenon, but that's not like that. That is not that.
Okay, well, let me explain it this way. Between the Earth's surface, you have, between the equator, you have about so much air, because under the ocean floor, which is under the ocean floor, before you get to the equator, you have a line right here. There is no water there. And this is before you get to the equator where the lava is.
Okay. And there
Okay,
are
so
also no people there either.
exactly.
They
So
have always
again,
used machines
exactly. So
to
no,
go
there's no
where no
machines
man
there.
has gone before. What are
There's
you
no
saying?
machines there. There's no machines there. This is the hemisphere.
This is
This is
how
the
you
part
think.
of the
Wait a
world
minute. How
that
you think they
rotates and
measured
goes
all this
around.
from the
I'm not
beginning and
beginning
know
to
all this from the beginning?
because I already knew this from science. This is nothing that is new to us. This is
I'm
already
talking about
there.
how they measure, how they were able to get to, to know like that was where the line, the imaginary line should be. Like you're saying, there's only a certain amount of air. There's only, the force and
I'm
gravity,
calling it
all of
air.
that is going
I'm
to
not
change.
saying it's
So
air.
I'm saying, like,
I'm
how do you
calling
think
it
they
air. I'm not saying it's air. I'm calling it air because it's there. I'm not saying it's actually
Yeah,
air.
but just think about it. Okay, let's, no matter what you called it, right? Let's think about it. If this is where, at the center of the earth, right, where they're saying this imaginary line exists to separate the polars, do you know what type of force must also be there too, whether it's on top or beneath? Why wouldn't they use machines and at that time antiquated robots and things like that to measure? That's how you get
Measure
that.
what?
Would
I ain't
no
gonna measure
man
a world that was
wouldn't no
already built
man
that
be
they
going
didn't
there
build.
to sit and try to, get those type of
They're gonna tear
diameters?
up the world that they didn't build. That would be crazy. They're gonna plunge a hole in the middle of a world that they didn't build to go between
No,
the
what I'm saying is
people
that
can't
in
get
order
down that
to,
far.
no, that's not what I'm saying though. What I'm saying is in
Okay.
order to even come up to with that conclusion, you know, I'm pretty sure, okay, so let me clear this up. I'm pretty sure they sent plenty of people there before they realized, this is a place here with so much gravitational force, or when you get to where they're talking about, which is the center of the earth, so
Now
much
humans couldn't
fluctuation,
make it to
so
the center
much
of the earth.
everything, because you have two forces pulling in opposite direction, that could potentially be a dangerous spot because of the volatility, right? That's happening
Could
between
not
the
make
two.
it to the
We don't
center
know.
of
I've
the earth.
never been
They
there, and I've
barely
never
make
done
it to
enough.
where the Titanic at to live. You can't make it to the center of the earth. You barely can live to make it to the Titanic and live.
Okay,
Some
so that's what I'm
people
saying.
make
So they
it there.
sent,
That's not
so that,
possible.
thank you. That's my point. So they would not go there. They would send they would send machines and robots, or
They
try
haven't
to
made
meet the
anything that can
waves,
make
or
it that far yet without it being explosive. That's why the machine that made it to the Titanic barely could make it that far. There's nothing they have made that has made it that far down yet. They
okay,
have
but how
seen
far do you need to go to realize that this is where things change? And this is what
what
I'm saying. Even on the surface, I bet you, it's pretty rough right there, because that is where things begin to change. So probably before you even get to the center of that, there's a lot of volatility in the weather, the this, the that, the third, because you have separate gravitational forces pulling. I wouldn't imagine it's an
well, yeah,
easy journey
they
right
know
there.
it
Yeah,
does. They know it
where things
rotates.
change
They know
from
the
the center of the
rotation
earth.
and all of those things. So they do have something that knows it. Because now I don't know why they trying to act like they just now knowing it, because they've been knowing it, that the equator goes around and not, because I think last year they said the Earth has a heartbeat, but you've been knew that because you knew the equator goes around. So for you
Well,
to
no,
just say
I mean, that's not
you knew
something
it
they
had a
been
heartbeat is
new.
ridiculous, huh?
Satellites made it possible because, once again, one of the benefits of, being a futuristic year according to them, right, by their standards, 2024. One good thing about it is that, again, our technology just keeps getting better and better with each and every
No, that
year.
was going on before that though. The
I,
equator
I mean, I don't see how, but I'm okay. I see how, but again, it's just better. It's like just it's the same equivalent of building a bigger and better telescope to see further and broader, to see, to have that spectrum really up close to see what other stars and planets looks like. It's the
Yeah.
same, it's the same equivalent, between what they knew then versus you put a high-tech satellite up in the sky and now it's giving you the geography and reading the measurements to the letter.
Yeah. To a degree, yeah. I can agree with that, especially when you're trying to look in the equator and all of this, because they doing cave diving and all kind of stuff. Even though they dying at it, but they still trying for it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
facts.
yeah. Because I do watch a lot of that too, which I want to do a clip on a lot of the cave, but I don't want to get into too deep of it because a lot of them don't make it, but a lot of them do. And all of the wonderfulness in these caves, but I wouldn't do it. But the beauty of but yeah,
Oh, I'm not. You can forget it.
I wouldn't do it. But yeah,
I'm claustrophobic and everything else. I can't do. Mm-mm, mm-mm.
it's dark for real,
I can
and
see the air. I don't care what nobody say. I can see air.
right, and just to be lost down there and knowing that you only got it's worse than climbing mountains for whatever reason. It's worse, but um,
Yeah, it's all
this
that pressure.
yeah, because you have to take your time going back up.
Gravity.
Otherwise, it's so dangerous, deep sea diving. Just we can go into it one time. I'll do a slide on it. It's more dangerous
You
deep sea
should do it.
diving.
That would be so fun on Friday, deep sea
It's
diving.
so
Yeah, because I
dangerous
think you
deep
said
sea
that
diving.
before. That you, yeah, that you kind of were like uh intermediary advanced in deep sea diving.
Yeah, it's worse than mountain climbing. I'll get into mountain climbing too one time, but mountain climbing, I mean they said black people do climb mountains, really? But yeah, mountain climbing is a risk of itself, but um even going down the mountain that's the higher risk than climbing it. But deep sea diving, the risk of going down is one thing, dropping them weights, but even coming up is a higher risk to the point that they got people that's doing these drops. They dropping and they with one breath going down 90 meters or so and coming back up. And yeah, it's serious.
Yeah,
You know?
I bet. I bet. Yeah, that some of those mountains, like I think that was Everest we were talking about, right? They were
Mhm.
nicknaming it, if not Trash City, right? The second Skid Row, they were naming it like Skull and
Yeah,
Bones.
yeah, it's so
People, so many people
disrespectful.
have died on that damn mountain.
Yeah, it's disrespectful how they've done it. That's why I
Trash
say
on their people or
when we talk
bones. Yeah,
about
bones of
the
trash or
Hindu,
bodies.
yeah, the Hindus and some of the other religions is, you have to honestly go to a lot of the cities and towns or whatever they call them over there, and you have to get permission because of the sacredism there, the cultures and the sacredism. So you have to go and get permission prior to even getting there. It takes weeks and up to months to even before you even get to the bottom of the mountains, just in traveling alone. You know,
Mhm.
it take months to climb a mountain, right? And then you have a season. It's a set season that you have to climb. So you have to do it before May, and people
Yeah,
leave out like in March, like right about now, right?
yeah.
And then
Well,
they have a
because that's when I can see that because that's when
yeah.
the volatility goes down.
No, and also because when the sun starts to come out, like in mid-May or so, the ice will start melting and start to form into ice, and that's one thing. You might even have you don't see the snowstorms and blizzards until they come around the mountain, and when they hit like that, it's dangerous. Also, because you're so high up, the sun peaks and hits on those mountains, and it starts to melt. So they actually have to climb the mountain, it's
Mm,
starting at the middle of the night when the sun is down, and by noon or so, they have to be done and on their way down, right?
Or in
Because
those stints, yeah.
peak of the sun is they can't really be on the mountain because they suffer from avalanches and things of that nature. So they can be
Mm.
on the mountain during those times, like 9 o'clock, 9, 10:30, something like that.
But
They
where
need
do
to
they
be on there
shelter at
coming
then? Where
down.
do they shelter?
Huh?
Where do they shelter at then?
Most of the time they try to find them a base, like a flat base part, and sometimes they actually sleep on the mountain hanging. So they always try to find a base. They make a baseline or a base camp, and it's somewhere off to the side where they're not actually close to any peaks or something. And they base
Mm.
camp there, and they leave those areas so disrespected and so trashy and whatnot from climbing so much that that's why it's getting disrespected to the point that the people are might be thinking it be only because they need the money is the reason why they're still allowing it to
Yeah.
happen.
Why they
Right,
entertain all these young tourists?
right. Because
Because
remember,
it's a part of
they're
their
between
economy after all of these years. Yeah, I'm sure.
and because they're
A big
between like
part.
China, Norway, and another country, and so there's three ways you can get through. But one side, like the north face or the south face, might be one dangerous than the other side. Then you got canvases, and everybody know that this is a one-way ticket, like they said on Abyss. So just because your team lead or the camp it's their responsibility to get you down, but also, they'll shun you if you leave somebody up there, but also is
Mm.
humanity. Is it inhumane to leave somebody there, right? But it's also that chance that you may die trying to bring somebody down. So
Yeah.
whose job is it? Is it because they'll send the shepherds, but at the same time, you have a decision to make if it's going to be life threatening for you. Because
Yeah.
even then,
Decisions. Decisions.
you see what I'm saying? So we talking about being humane at a certain point. You know, it's that serious. So
We're
yeah,
talking about people's individual moral compass at this point.
exactly. And it's the same way when it comes to deep diving, right? Because when you get so far in the water, only experienced divers can go get you. And even then, it depends on how far you are, if they'll come and get you or not, or if it's, you know what I'm saying? So it's just, yeah. Have
Mm-mm-mm.
been down there 10 years, 15 years, and maybe an experienced diver may go and get you based on if they can bring, and somebody has lost their life to go try to get a life and bring a life back up. And, Dave no more. That's one of the things I want to see. And it results in stories like this. It's heroic, but at the same time, it's sad, you know, and yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, Sakina B,
So
it
with
is
that
2
being said,
p.m.
we're gonna
Yes,
appreciate
I am
everybody that
tired.
showed up and showed out. And if you're not here tonight and you do check out the video, we want to let you know that we appreciate you for watching, sharing, subscribing, and viewing the video. Make sure you tune in for more. We appreciate you much. Gemini.
Good night.
Gemini tip, everybody. Good night. Okay. Peace, Jay. I'll see you on Fortnite.